coming out of the previous CDC report, the cash doesn't exist. But I was told that something was so wrong, the cash doesn't exist, which is why I told that May was when I was originally intending to borrow. If it's coming from regular cash, then I can comment their issue about the closing having that window there. The bottom. So, yeah, so that's well. If you don't have to, start paying. So you're going to start paying interest on that.
Second to last.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll call the March 4th Select Board meeting to order. We're making one change to the agenda. We are going to take Select Board reports and comments after public hearing number 1, before public hearing number 2. And we are going to add an announcement in regard to the coronavirus updates. Sure.
Okay, so as of this morning, there have been a couple more cases in the United States of the coronavirus. The numbers are now above 100 in the United States. Risk on Nantucket still stays low, but we have had a lot of international travel. There is a lot of rumor out there about some people being quarantined and isolated at their home. Isolation and quarantine are legal terms, and there is a full definition on those. Isolation and quarantine procedures have not been implemented legally on the state in Massachusetts so far. The only people who have done that have been the CDC. However, if a person is voluntarily isolated, which means if you have the case and you're voluntarily isolating at home, that is a person's prerogative, and we are recommending that. Quarantine is when we separate a person from a population if they have been exposed to a virus. No one has been quarantined on Nantucket so far. People who are voluntarily leaving, or if a person's place of employment has asked them to voluntarily isolate or quarantine themselves, the business can ask you to do that. So that's just a few questions that I had received today already. So I just wanted to get that one out there. So anyway, as far as the outbreak goes, the most important message that's out there right now is that this is a respiratory illness. So it is very important to pay attention to your symptoms. It is a very symptomatic illness, more so as it is latent, more so than it is latent. So what we would call a latent disease is a disease that somebody can, or a latent illness, is something that somebody can have and they don't know they have it until the actual symptom happens, like a cold sore. This is not that sort of illness. If you get it, you will show symptoms eventually within those 2 weeks of being exposed to it. If you do not show the symptoms within those 2 weeks, you are free and clear, but doesn't mean you won't get it later. You can get re-exposed to it. It comes off as a very strong flu. Symptoms are fever, cough, headache, malaise, muscle pains, and aches. If you are feeling any sort of symptoms like that, please stay home and call your primary care physician. Do not show up to the hospital with symptoms. Do not just show up to a primary care with symptoms, because you run the risk of passing that infection to people in the waiting room as well. So please call ahead. A lot of times we can actually get, sorry, let me slow down a little bit. We can actually get somebody to the house or to get some sort of transportation for that person to the hospital and in through the isolation room, so that you don't have to get into contact with the people who are already there. Another important message to get out there is masks aren't that effective if you don't have the illness. If you please keep the masks, save your mask. If you have some, save them in case you get an illness or in case you have to take care of somebody who has it. The mask is only good for a certain amount of time, especially N95s, the ones with the little respirator at the tip. Those are only good for a certain amount of time. Once you've exposed them to the air, they're only good for about 4 hours. So once you've used it, you're only concentrating it more into the mask afterward. You have to take it off after that 4-hour period. So there's a lot of questions about masks. We have been in contact with the State Department of Public Health through their weekly conference calls. The state is monitoring 2 cases right now. One case was in UMass, and that person is no longer symptomatic. That person is back in class, and there was no transmission on that one. The second case in the state of Massachusetts is in Norfolk County. This is a person that went to Italy in a field trip, and to northern Italy where there's an endemic spread. And this person came back showing signs and symptoms, and then called their local health department, and they initiated their own isolation. We don't know how many people, if any, that person may have exposed, but it's fair to just pay attention to the news every day. There's a lot of rumor out there as well that this is trumped up political hype. That's not true. This is an illness that is new. Therefore, people are responding harder than you typically would see with the flu. It's because it is new that so many isolation and quarantine procedures are in place. It may not be as strong, or it may not be as widespread as we're seeing in China, mainly because we now know how to respond to it symptomatically. The symptoms do go away by themselves, but if they start turning more severe, they can become pneumonia, it can become bronchitis, it can become more than that. But it is like a very strong cold. It is a very strong flu-like symptom. Yes, Jason?
How do you know what the difference is between the flu and, like, does it get so bad and you're like, all right, I got to call Dr. Lepre? Like, when do you make that
Laboratory
call?
testing. The only way you can tell the difference is laboratory testing. That's really it.
But you can't go in because you don't want to infect anybody, so how do you get it tested?
You would call let's say you have Dr. Lepre, you would call Dr. Lepre's office and coordinate with his office on how to get yourself to his office and in through a door that you won't infect somebody, or they can actually come out to you if they're willing to do that. I'm not going to speak for his staff.
And they take a blood test, send it in.
It's a nasal swab, an oropharyngeal swab, and if you are producing sputum, they will take a sputum sample as
And you
well.
have to send it off, and it takes a day or two.
They send it to the state laboratory in Boston via a courier, a medical courier, and they do a testing on it called RT-PCR, real-time polymerase chain reaction, which produces the result within a few hours. Usually from when they take the sample here, it would be about 24 to 48 hours.
Thank you.
If we have isolated cases, 1 or 2 here and there, without a greater outbreak, the CDC has spoken to us and has said that they will provide the immediate response. And we have spoken with the State Department of Public Health, and they will provide the traveling nurses, for lack of a better word. So you don't have to worry about infecting our own local population, our own local doctors and nurses as well. They will implement the isolation and quarantine procedures. Let me see what else. We are getting information and flyers out there. We're trying to get flyers out to, I spoke with NRTA. We're going to be getting flyers on there. There's going to be flyers out at the boats and at the ports of entry. And tomorrow we'll be distributing flyers to people in all our buildings, the town buildings as well. If you feel inclined to use Purell or any of those antibacterial gels, make sure that the active ingredient is a minimum of 60% alcohol. That's how you disinfect the general area on your body. The best way, though, is washing your hands. 20 seconds, warm water, Soap is mechanical. Make sure you get the bubbles. You can't just use soap underneath the water. You have to get the bubbles. It creates something called a micelle. The micelle is like a little jail cell for the dirt and the germ. It grabs the germ off your skin, rinses off into the water. If you're just rubbing your hands together, it's not going to do much. Make sure you get the bubbles, 20 seconds, warm water, rinse, and then you dry. Sneezing, sneeze into the crook of your elbow. If you have tissues, use a tissue, throw it away immediately, wash your hands. And then really, it's a matter of just watching. One of the most important part of this is that people need to understand is that 80% of all the cases worldwide are extremely mild. People don't always know they even have it. Sometimes it feels like a really small common cold. One of the most important points is that MERS, SARS, the coronavirus, and the common cold are all part of the same virus family. They're all coronaviruses. This just happens to be a little bit stronger than most. So you treat it in the same way. There's no cause for no reason to be panicking, no reason to be pulling everyone out of the schools, no reason to be pulling your children away, no reason to be kicking people out of your offices. It is still treated like a normal respiratory illness. Do a social distancing, wash your hands, wait till the symptoms subside, then go back to work. We have a town website, nantucket-ma.gov. On the health department page, we have a page dedicated to the coronavirus. So if you have information there, and you can also go to information at cdc.gov or who.int. It's the World Health Organization. It's a quick update. I know there's so many more questions. It's just it's a situation we're monitoring and we're evolving, and we are in communications with the State Department of Health, the CDC. We've been in communication with the hospital, the police department, and the fire department. We are all working together on this. And the schools, and NRTA, and all the town departments.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roberto. We have a quick announcement about a forum that's coming up on March 26th.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I'm here to represent Holly Backus and Chuck Larson, who are the project managers for this forum. The forum is called Resilient Nantucket. That's the name of the town's program to develop hazard mitigation and vulnerability protocols for the town. On Thursday, March 26th, from 2 o'clock until 6 o'clock, in this room, the community room for Fairgrounds, there'll be a forum called Preparing Your Historic Property for a Future of Rising Seas. Goes right off your tongue. It'll be facilitated by our grant award winner, Lisa Craig from the Craig Group. There will be a guest speaker from FEMA, who is the Deputy Regional Environmental Manager for the flood program. Her name is Mary Shanks, and there'll be the Certified Floodplain Manager for Barnstable County, Ms. Shannon Holst, will be here to answer questions. This is the first of 3 forums. These are posted on the town's website, right off of Resilient AC, or you can look up Resilient Nantucket on the website, and there's more information regarding it. This is all part of a grant that the town received from the MVP program, the Massachusetts Vulnerability Preparedness Program, for $78,000 to develop historic preservation guidelines to protect and adapt properties for flood risk and climate change.
Will this be recorded by NCTV?
It'll be recorded, yes.
And Greg, are each of the forums different topics, or is it the same one just with different?
They're all going to be different topics, all around flooding, erosion, hazard mitigation, preparedness, and different speakers, from what I understand.
Thank you. We just didn't say the select board meeting is being audio and video recorded. Oh, yeah. So I'll just add that now. Moving on to the public comment portion of our agenda for any topics that are otherwise not on our agenda for discussion.
My question is, pointed to the town manager. Is there any update on the incident at the African Meeting House?
My understanding, the chief could probably speak to this, is that the entire matter was referred to the state police, or the state police. And most recently, about maybe 4 weeks ago or so, we asked for an update, and they reported there was not anything to update.
Well, my understanding is that the matter is about to be resolved. You need to speak into the mic, sorry. My understanding is that the matter is about to be resolved.
I don't know.
Rosemary, you can put it down to your mouth. It's adjustable.
I don't know what that would be about.
So after all this time, nobody knows who wrote on the building?
Apparently not.
Strange.
My name is Norm Garvin. I just have a quick question. Do we paint our own lines on our roads, or is that done by our owners?
Is DPW Director here? Could you respond to that, Rob?
Well, the reason I ask, I live in the area here, and there's two roads in particular that I think is dangerous for all of us. And now that we're all 39, and these new lights that come out, these new cars, it's very dangerous driving. And we have Hooper Farm Road, and we have Bartlett Road, where the bike path is right close to the roads. And the only thing that separates it is a white line, which is not there anymore. And before somebody gets hurt in the dark areas, I think we should do something about it. If we know how the condition of the roads are, it's going to be a while before they're taken care of, but at least you can put some paint on those roads so nobody gets hurt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Rob McNeil, DPW. We have a line painting bid that was actually open today with Barnstable County. We'll be reviewing that with them. And typically, the long lines, center lines, and edge lines are bid out. The stop bars and crosswalks are typically done in-house. We are looking to have those bid out this year.
So it will address what Norm's talking about then?
Well, again, long lines, sidelines, and crossbars and stop bars.
All right.
So yes, thank you.
On the first question, Chief, can you get us a more extensive update from the state police? You know, just what they've done?
Well, the answer to that will probably be no. The reason is because the reason the investigation was turned over to the state police was because there was an implication that either members of this department or influential people in the town may have been involved in the incident in one way, shape, or form. So we had to turn it over to them so that we would remain completely out of the investigation so that we didn't taint the investigation. They're not going to go to us and tell us what they're doing because, according to some individuals, we may have been involved. So I'm going to stand here and say we and the people that they implied were pretty confident were not involved, but in order to maintain the integrity of the investigation, the DA's office and the state police will not involve us in the investigation. So, we have nothing other than they were making progress, we believe, but we have no information as to what they're doing, how they're doing it, who they're talking to, or anything like that.
Would they let us know if the case was closed at some point? Or if it's still an ongoing investigation?
Well, most of the time what happens is those things stay open until the statute of limitations would run out, in case something comes up. So, they may or they may not. And I've actually inquired as to if anything's been going on, and literally I was told by the commander of the investigations division that for the reasons I just stated, it'd be better if we were not involved and if we weren't, the appearance that we're trying to influence or direct their investigation in any way. So that's what happens when people start making statements about things they really don't know about, anything about, is, it doesn't always go their way. And so, I encourage people to not speculate on rumors, to not do anything. But I have to point out, too, that the individual that made these allegations has yet to talk to the state police, despite numerous incidents of them trying to get that person to talk to them. So, it's unfortunate.
One quick question. Could Don, as the chair of the select board, make an inquiry? Would that be looked upon differently?
I don't think it would be, but
okay.
To follow, can just a citizen just call up and ask if there's an ongoing, any updates?
They wouldn't comment about, a lot of times they won't even comment if they even have an investigation, just for a random call.
And what would the statute?
But you could make a request, but I don't know if they would answer it or not.
Okay. And what would the statute of limitations be on this kind of case?
I'm not even sure about that, so we're offhand.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure what they think they're investigating at this point. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments this evening? Hearing none, there's no new business that I'm aware of. Approval of payroll warrants and treasury warrants.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Approval of pending contracts. Are there any questions or comments on the contracts?
None. Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have a joint meeting with the NRTA Advisory Board, which is us. So we'll open that joint meeting now. And Paula is here to walk us through.
Could I take a minute to make a quick announcement before we get into the discussion of the agenda item? Just to make everyone aware that the NRTA is in the process of updating its regional transit plan to create a vision for the next 5 years and prioritize service improvements. So we will be holding some focus groups meetings that we'd love for people to attend. These meetings will be on March 18th. The first meeting will be in the morning from 9:30 to 11:30 at the Greenhound Building. The afternoon meeting will be held from 1:30 to 3:30 at the Community Foundation for Nantucket Conference Room. Both meetings can be accessed by riding the wave. And then we will be making a presentation of what that process is and everything to the board that night at 6 o'clock. So all are invited to attend. Okay. After 2 meetings of discussion about, downtown bus service, which is really going to be an expansion of the airport route with increased frequency, days and hours. A couple questions that were left from last week that have been answered. The local assessment funding, regardless of the fiscal year, can be used as a funding mechanism for this for new service. With it being a seasonal summer service that spans 2 fiscal years, when the NRTA certifies after its audit to DOT, we'll just state that, and that it's a continuation of service for our summer service. So that will hit the cherry sheet 22 and 23. Okay. Brian and I went round for a while.
I'm glad you sorted that out.
So, there would be no additional money or check to cut from the town. With the proposed bus stops that Mr. McNeil showed last week with going through to Amelia Drive and using the Amelia Drive stops, my recommendation will be for a $3 fare, which is the norm from that stop. Encourage people that are going to be using it frequently to buy passes. There's going to be no way that we can distinguish who is coming from where to use that service.
So at the last meeting, you had said $1.50 each way.
Because I was going to, my recommendation for the stops were going to be outside of the 2F or 2FG driveway, and then a stop created across the street that would be just a tad outside of our fare structure for half fare to and from the Rotary in town. This pushes it out. There's no way whoever's standing there, they're going to get picked up. The driver's not going to know whether they came from the fish market, from the parking lot, and I'm not getting into, when we carry 3,000 people, getting into that. So I would recommend the $3 fare that is consistent with the NRTA's fare structure. And, when we do the marketing for this, because it's not in the rider's guide, we'll just continue to encourage employers to get passes, people to get passes.
And say someone wants to use it 5 days a week all summer. Obviously, $6 a day is going to get a little cost prohibitive, but how much is a pass for the summer season?
I didn't bring a rider's guide in with the changes. I don't remember off the top of my head. I want to say if an employer buys the pass for their employees, it might be $125 for the summer. A little more if they do it. We have several different pass categories.
Okay.
And where's the line? Can you just move the line 50
That messes
yards?
up.
100 yards?
That messes up our entire fare structure, which is already published, which the fare box system is set up to do.
So it can't happen.
Well, and then you're reducing the fare box revenue.
Well, I'd like the fare box revenue to be zero. I'd like to find
I know
a
you
funding
would.
source and be not charging this at all, like a lot of first class tourist communities do.
No.
But that's a
No,
So,
I understand.
So every time you
but-
make that argument, I say,
we
we
still
need to
gotta
find
pay-
that way around that.
We got to pay for the service,
understand.
until somebody generous comes forward with $2.5 million. This is where we're at. So that's and I think the other issue is just to make sure that those improvements with the lot and the cut through and the signage for people that'll be parking in the lot, leading them to the bus stop, is done in advance of the service starting on, what do we say, May 26th.
And is the $3 fee the same coming from the airport? So it's the whole route is $3?
Yep.
Okay.
So if we wanted to make bus service free entirely, we would need $2.5 million.
Or, I can look at the budget, but, we're up to $2.5–3 million for the service, so.
Okay. I think that's a conversation we should have at some point.
That's some of the recommendations. Some of the estimates 15 years ago from paid parking were in that realm.
Yep,
So
yep.
that's what we're talking about. So.
Mm-hmm. And from the last meeting, I know there was a survey that went out. Did any of the questions look at price sensitivity for people in using the shuttle or no?
I never saw the survey, so I don't know, Libby, I don't think so.
There's a lot of towns our size going free or no fare.
Yep.
Right. But we'd have to plan it out. Maybe if you really want to do that 2023, 24, find a funding source. I'm all for that. Just for Madam Chair, it's $120 for a summer commuter.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
So if you are going to use it 5 days a week for 8 weeks, that'd be that's $120. Do the math. So if you use it more than 8 weeks, you would buy that, and it's $70 for a Nantucket student. If they're using it a lot.
What's the year-round pass?
200.
Annual is $200. Annual commuter is $150. So the annual commuter is not bad. That's a pretty good deal.
It is. Well, and we do it that way for a reason.
Okay, so I think that we can improve on it, but I would go with the recommendations of what will function for this year. But I do want to be ahead of getting whatever buses we're going to need to make the service twice as good next year.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's looking a little discouraging, just to let you know that. But
let's
keep
try and figure that
plugging.
out.
Believe me, I am.
Yeah, is that just another meeting? We have an update on that? How do we make sure that we're on top of that?
It's all a procurement.
Okay.
Right now, we're having an extremely difficult time even finding a bus that will meet our needs. But we've had some meetings, we've had some discussions, we've had some vendor discussions. So, and then it'll be the procurement for that. So,
Maybe Paula and I could stay in touch.
Sure.
On what the hurdles are.
Yep.
And I can keep the board informed. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And as a reminder, the steamship helped the vineyard apply for a grant that got them an electric bus. So there may be something like that we could be looking into as well.
Yeah.
I pay attention to all that stuff.
I know.
Yep.
Further discussion and maybe a sort of evolution of some of the strategic plan goals would be that seeing if we can make it a free service.
So kind of clarify, are we looking at option 2, the May 26th to September 30th? Is that what you're
Oh, I
recommending?
didn't bring that. It was May 26th to September 7th from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay, so option 3.
Option 3, yep.
Okay. We're good.
Okay.
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, why don't you just so we can.
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll adjourn the NRTA portion of the meeting and continue with the rest of the select board business. Town manager's report on the Harbor Master Building.
So as the board knows, we were awarded a $1.2 million, $1 million grant for this project, as well as an appropriation from town meeting. And because this is going to be a pretty visible project, we wanted to keep the board posted as the design progresses and before we go to HDC, which is an upcoming step. So the architect is here and architects, and they can give us an update.
So it has not been to HDC?
No, I forgot that I told them that I wanted it to come here before we went to HDC.
This gives us a chance to insert our, what is it called?
Don't get carried away.
Well, what I was a little bit interested in is how detailed and engineered the drawings were without going to HDC. Usually you go to HDC with a more conceptual before you spend the money to engineer them. And that kind of process was what I had questions on. Maybe they can address that.
And my only comment before we get going was just consideration of solar panels. And I know we might be too far down that route, but it looks like there's south-facing roof that could suit solar panels.
I'm Steve Keller, Architects with the lead.
Can you wait till you come to the mic so I can hear you?
Great, thank you. Sure. I know there's more. Thank you.
No, we're good.
Good evening. My name's Steve Kelleher, Stephen Kelleher Architects. We're the lead architects on the Harbor Master project. With me is Tarja McGill from Coastal Engineering, who's working on the site civil environmental aspects of this project. We started this project back in 2015, 2016. We were hired to do a study for this project and basically do a structural survey of the existing building, hazmat, existing conditions. And during the study phase, the building was originally in an AE zone, flood zone, and FEMA updated their maps. So now the building is in a velocity zone VE 11. The existing grade is elevation 5. So, and also the building is in the historic district. So there was competing challenges to make this building come to pass. As we progressed through the study stage in 2016, the Historic Commission requires that the building not be over 30 feet tall, and the FEMA velocity zone was VE 11, so +2. So if you went according to strict code, you would have a building that was on stilts 11 feet out of the ground and probably 40 feet tall. To basically counter this, we needed to figure out a better way to accomplish the building so that it would fit in the historic district and also be ADA accessible and look like a building that belonged in the historic district. We therefore went to the state of Massachusetts and got a variance to build a flood-proof structure in a velocity zone, which is not allowed under the state building code. So if you look at the little sketch that I gave you, the single page, this sketch here, basically that sketch represents what we got the variance on. And what we got the variance on was to build a ferro-cement boat or a concrete boat in the velocity zone so that basically the bottom of the windows in the harbor master would be at elevation 13, or what would be normally the bottom of structure. So the floor is at elevation 9.5, 10. And so it only has a 40-foot ramp. Inside the building, there's an elevator between the first and second floor. But basically, the way to accomplish this is basically we will have steel portable dams. See the blue doorways? So at each doorway in a hurricane event, there'll be portable dams that'll be put in. So the building will be secured up to that elevation 13 feet above sea level. It's a hybrid. This is normally allowed in an AE zone, but they allowed us to do it in a velocity zone. This concept has been used in some of the hospitals in New York City after Hurricane Sandy, because you couldn't rise a 50-story building, you just don't pick them up. So flood-proofing was the way they went. So, given the variances and now being rehired to do the actual building, not just the study, we have basically figured out how to do this in actuality. We started out, the first thing we did was a geotechnical study, test borings of the land that's where the building is now. What we found out on the geotechnical report was that you have 2.5 feet of good soil, you have 5 to 7 feet of really bad soil, and then you've got good soil after about 10 or 11 feet. So to build this, we're not using footings, we're going to use 70 steel piles to support the ferro cement boat above. So if we go to from the concept to the actual drawings, we'll start with the site. And Taria will bring you through the site development portions of the building. And then after we look at what the site development is, we will look at, I'll go through the building arrangements with you.
Thank you. Taria McGrail with Coastal Engineering. So as you're aware, this is a site located on Nantucket Harbor, and as such, we have environmental resource areas to consider with the development of the site plans. On site, we have land subject to coastal storm flowage, dунal areas, and also the coastal beach. So taking that into consideration, and in particular the flood zone element of this project, the building is going to be coming up. Currently, it's a slab on grade that's at high risk for flooding in most storm events. It's at slab elevation is at elevation 5. So first floor is going to be coming up, as Stephen mentioned, up to about elevation 10. Underneath the structure, you're going to have about 2.5 feet of open space that will be pervious, which will allow stormwaters to come in and out of the site without having any impact on the building itself. The benefits of the new design as they relate to environmental resources in the area and protection, which we'll definitely go into more detail with conservation. But the benefits here are that you have less risk for storm damage during a storm event. You have that increased infiltration on the site, which should be a benefit to the surrounding properties as well. So as we're looking at development of this site, we're proposing improving the parking area at the front off of Washington Street. Currently, cars are backing into Washington Street to maneuver in and out of the parking spaces that are there. We're going to a configuration that will allow for cars to swing in and park perpendicular to the way they're parking now, so they'll be parallel with that front face of the building. We're also going to be providing a handicap accessible space that fully meets ADA requirements, and then we'll have one 9x20 space that meets your local requirements for a parking spot. To the north of the building, there's going to be a loading zone that will be for temporary drop off. People could use it to drop off. Harbor Master could use it for pick up and drop off. It will also allow for the trash and recycling pickup to occur in that corridor to the north of the building. Looking at this, if you see the green area that's highlighted there, just to the left of that is going to be our trash and recycling areas. And the way it's laid out now is that as you leave the pier and head towards Washington Street, there's going to be a fence, a privacy fence, that will help to kind of screen some of those trash and recycle areas, but they'll be easily accessible for people to dispose of items on their way from the pier. So that's in that area. This area right here is the loading zone, and then right here we have the 2 parking spaces, one handicap and one regular. This is the new building itself. And then to the south of that right here, we're proposing a storage shelter for a trailer. So that's going to be for the benefit of the harbor master to allow storage of items that are currently out in the open today. To access this trailer storage location, there's going to be a new curb cut coming off of Washington Street. That will be pervious shell and will not be used by the general public. We are going to maintain the existing walk that you have today that goes the park in this area that allows access out to the pier. The 2 areas in green that you see on the site plan, actually 3 of them, are areas where we're proposing to help mitigate for some of the footprint for the new building and the shell walkways by proposing kind of dunal improvement areas, restoration areas that will be beach grass and sand that will be similar to the landscape that's out there today. Very low maintenance and will fit into the character of this area. So I'm not sure if you have any questions on the site or building questions.
I believe there's 4 parking spaces there right now. Am I correct in that?
No, there's 3.
Is it 3? Or will there's, and then there's still the loading zone. Yeah. This is really heavily used in the summertime. I'm really worried about this new configuration. I mean, I know it's a real hassle backing out onto Washington Street, but people go slow. To make it so that the loading zone person is going to block in whoever's in the parking spaces and to lose a parking space, it's just going to be really detrimental to all of the families who use this constantly on boating all summer.
Yeah, they pull up and unload constantly.
Yeah, it's nonstop.
And they move
I don't know
pretty
if you've
quick.
seen what it's like on like a Sunday, but it's I think that this is going to cause a lot more problems than it's fixing.
Where the shelter is for the trailer, we felt as though that was where Sheila would park in that area there. So that would become another the parking space you lost.
Yeah, but she's not there on like those I mean, sometimes she's there, but there's really like 4 places you can pull in a row, and it's really heavily used. So that just worries me.
Just my question, what's the life expectancy of this building?
Probably 75 years.
75? What sea level rise did you do? I know you're doing, VE 11 plus 2. For current, what was, 75 years out, what numbers were you using?
2050, we would still be above what would be a flood.
Right.
2075, we didn't even think about going up that high.
Right, and so the reason I'm asking is some of the things we're doing now. My family owned a property recently sold that went up to the windows. Hasn't flooded there yet, but we look at the projections and it looks like it will be. And I'm wondering, should we go higher? It just how flood proof is it? And in that area, we're talking flood, but we're also talking the main thing. And so for people that don't understand, VE has a lot to do with storm surge. And I think people, it's sort of not just the sea level rise that we're worried about, it's the storm surge. And what happens in that location and in the harbor is that the water comes in and it doesn't come out. And so we get through the next high tide and there's even more water coming. And so, that's why we have sort of the heights that we have, the projections we have, and those seemingly will be worse. People arguing slightly about how much worse it will be. But, so anyway, that's why I'm asking those questions.
At elevation 13, in 2016, before the FEMA maps changed, it was an AE 9 zone. So we're 4 feet higher than what we would have been if you built this building in 2015. So that's quite a bit higher.
No, it is, but it's also pointing out, I think the issue we're going to have as a community that we're sort of just starting to realize and tackle now is the issue of sea level rise and increased storms and heights, and how are we going to do it? And, it would sort of it'd be a shame to spend $2 or $3 million, on a building built as a bathtub that in 20 years, floods, the bathtub floods. So if there's a way to spend a little more now, and not have that happen, I'd be in favor of that. I know we're in the design process now.
Right.
You know, but so anyway, that's just my comment for the record.
One of the things I heard was that there was an HDC concern about the height. But didn't we, I think Andrew could correct me if I'm wrong on this, didn't we do a zoning bylaw change in regard to allowing the height to start at the top of the flood elevation? Was that 2 years ago? Are you guys aware of that change? That we
I was aware that there was a change.
that allows the overall building height to go up.
Right.
I think the issue you're gonna have, though, is the handicap ramps.
Right.
If you add it, and that's gonna, and they're really hard to, you know, even on a commercial building to put it in. On my buildings, it's a challenge, so that's the issue.
We basically, if, right now, the handicapped ramp is 40 feet long, which is fairly comfortable. If we raised the building 1 more feet, it'd be 50 feet long. I think that's something that's doable, and we'd be a little over 30 feet tall in terms of the overall height of the building. That is something, if the board wanted to entertain, I would definitely entertain it. I think we're on the safe side based on the 13, but I just finished a project in Swansea. It was an AE zone, and basically we raised the floor 2 feet higher than what was required by the building code and FEMA, because basically this is a phased project, and this was a lifeguard bathhouse project, and we basically are working on a 10-year plan for the 8-acre beach in Swansea. And so the next building, or the next 2 buildings that are going to be built, we were afraid that the FEMA would keep raising the level. So we decided to build it an extra 2 feet higher, so that if FEMA maps changed in 2024, we would already be up at that right level.
Right, and the other option is make it possible to lift the building when the time comes.
Yes.
So if we've designed it so that it can be lifted, and I sent that information to a friend of a friend who's doing a historic building, because I know they're changing a lot of the timbers underneath. And I said, well, you've got to, be thinking about it. And if you're doing that much work now, be able to lift that, because they're not next to the water. They're in a storm surge pathway.
Mm-hmm.
When the water comes down the road, it's going to go right through their house in a few years, and 10 years, whenever it is. But inside the life of that house, very certainly. And so, I think it's just something to be really thinking about at this point. Is it able to be lifted? Is you're making it up to the window well? Maybe it should be a little higher, with the windows being able to be blocked. And there's things like that we should at least be. And I'm not a designer, and it's not my job, but
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're using the most current data. I'm on the Coastal Resiliency. We have a draft of a letter coming to the select board fairly soon, and it's asking us to use, for the town and all the town departments, it's going to ask for the town to be using intermediate high, I believe, as the number. And, in 75 years out, what does that get us? It's 80, that would be intermediate high is 4.66 feet. So there's sort of, those will be coming to us. It's sort of the best guess the scientists have right now, but.
I think any opportunities for adaptability, because the numbers do keep changing, we don't know where they are. So I think the ability to lift in the future, rather than just building it 3 feet higher now for an extra $500,000 or whatever it is, I think any adaptability features that allow us to raise it as needed. And I'm also back to the parking. Was the configuration changed mainly to address that backing out onto Washington Street, or were there other reasons for changing it?
That was the main reason, not to be backing out onto Washington Street.
So it would be something that could potentially be changed if we felt that wasn't as much of a concern.
If you back that on, you'd end up with a continuous curb cut. instead of the approximately 25-foot curb cut that we have now.
And is that's what's already there, yeah, is a continuous curb cut?
Yeah, there's about a 50-foot curb cut there now.
Yeah, not visually pleasing, but I guess for people who use it, maybe just keeping that in mind, what would make more sense?
I think we're going to have a major public outcry if we eliminate that situation. And I'm actually looking at that we could gain a space.
Well, maybe we could keep the existing curb cut and access the garage from from there instead of making another curb cut on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Access that through the existing driveway somehow. I don't know. We have to.
Go ahead.
So we can certainly look at that, knowing that that's a potential option. Oftentimes, we're trying to eliminate that situation, but maybe the need here is more of a case. As far as the comment, so one thing on that is that we do need to create a true to code van accessible handicap parking spot. That's going to come with a cost of an 8-foot wide aisle. But, we'll certainly do our best to take a look and find you the most possible spaces that we can make. As far as trying to maneuver and use the larger curb cut to access the storage shelter, we'll take a look. We'll have to get creative, but we are trying to back a trailer into that space. So that'll be part of the consideration.
The idea behind the trailer and the shelter surrounding it is that basically when a hurricane or a nor'easter or whatever comes and this area is going to receive flooding, we can basically take all Sheila's things and bring them up to the police department here and then bring the trailer back after the event. So she's got a way to move things on and off the property, but on a day-to-day basis, she has a place to store all her dock equipment and so forth.
But we also own the property across the street, and so if we have to store some of that, the parking lots across the street, if we have to find another way to store it, maybe there's another way to do it. If it's at the cost of parking space, I just think we should be a little creative with
Well,
it.
I don't know that interferes. I mean,
It may
is
not.
there really a harm to put a curb cut there? There's not one directly across from it.
I think the point they're making is just that if we kept the curb cut as is at 50 feet, then you have a small 20-foot gap and then another curb cut. So it's just, I think that's really just a lot of asphalt or shell, just a lot of hard surfaces.
Is there an issue with permitting in terms of the length of curb cut, or is it grandfathered?
We'll have to look into that. We do have to apply for a curb cut permit for the new one and modifying the existing one if we do modify it. It'll be something to look into.
But if you keep it the same, it would just be as is.
Yeah, but they'd be adding another curb cut for the other structure. But
With the addition of that curb cut, it wouldn't even come to you because it's not eliminating any public space, parking spaces, so the DPW should be able to sign up on that, no problem.
Moving on to the building itself. Basically, the next slide, please. Okay. This is the first floor plan, and basically this shows the harbor master's office on the right-hand side of the sheet. That's the water side. And she has almost 180-degree view from this level and the level above this. There's also a visitor's area where they can collect pamphlets or ask questions about Nantucket, and there's an area for pamphlets, so forth and so on. just to the left of the entrance. And there's an elevator to the second floor, and there's also a stair to the second floor located there. And in the harbor master's office, there's a second door, a back door that leads over to the storage facility. The men's and women's bathrooms are all handicapped accessible. There are 3 showers in the men's room and 4 showers in the women's room. A handicapped toilet and a toilet in the men's room, 2 urinals and 2 sinks. In the women's room, there's 3 sinks and 4 toilets, including 1 handicapped. There is also in this plan a family toilet room, which we do a lot of. We've worked for the state parks for 24 years. The family unit takes care of not only a father like myself who sails with his 2 daughters, but also transgenders and other people that might not be comfortable in the men's or women's room. The covered porch area is one of the things that Charles mentioned to me was there will be a drinking fountain. There are both handicapped and a higher one, but we just at Swansea we just put in a bottle filling station also, and in many of the state park projects we do, we also have a dog dog dish for water, so that people traveling on boats, they travel with their dogs, gives them the opportunity to, if they're coming on or off the boat.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, Fido gets a chance to have some water. The next slide, please. The second floor is primarily Sheila's high post on the lower right-hand side, where she gets a much better view of the whole harbor from the second floor. There is a waiting area above that, and then there's a meeting room with views out to the harbor, and then at the water on the street side of the second floor is the lifeguard room, which will have four seats and a storage area for lifeguard equipment. And there's an IT room down at the bottom next to the handicapped toilet where all the computer systems will be hooked into. Yeah. I don't know what we've got on slides here, but if you look on your, the next this is the little storage unit where the trailer can be pulled in and out of. On your handouts, we have 3 views of the building. We have them in perspective. Up here is just straight on elevations. The front is on the left-hand side. It's on Washington Street. The one below that is the water side. The one in the right-hand side, upper right-hand side, is the toilet rooms and the harbor master building and the utility core. And bottom right is the tower. So the next drawings are just all the interior elevations for the project, all the handicap toilet rooms and lastly, we're working on the sections. As you can see, the building is approximately 4 feet off the ground with a 2-foot slab, piles, and pile caps. And maximum height as of right now is 30 feet. The chimney on the building is actually the vent shaft. It's a vent shaft for the elevator. And basically we made it look like a chimney with thin brick so that it fits in with the historic area instead of some mushroom on top. There's a section through the building showing basically how we're going to construct this building. There's a 2.5 foot pile cap at the lower right-hand side. And then there's a 2-foot slab. Above the slab is R30 insulation with a 2-inch wearing surface on top of that. The exterior of the concrete boat gets insulation plus plywood, and then it's shingled with white cedar shingles.
And that's all a marine grade, the type of plywood that can take water you're putting in, yeah.
But
Laminated.
the big thing is, the concrete is New England dry concrete. We used New England dry concrete when we did Horseneck Beach in Westport. And at Horseneck Beach, basically we're in a velocity zone and we had composting toilets for 12 to 15,000 visitors a day. The vaults that hold the composting toilet facilities are 10 feet into the water table. They were built in 2009. They're 30 feet wide by 90 feet long, and they're 8 feet into the water table, plus when the hurricane comes, it'll be 16 feet into the water. They're dry as a bone. We're using the same kind of concrete for this concrete boat. And on your handout, there's which is not on the screen, there are three perspective drawings of the building. And if you'd like, you can see on the first one in your handout, that's this one here. That's this one here. Basically, you can see from this perspective drawing that the doorways are approximately 3 feet lower than the windows, and that's where the concrete comes in, and the dams go into the doorways themselves in a hurricane event. Otherwise, the dams are just stored in storage. That's it. Any questions?
Questions?
I just would like to ask again, and it might be too early, but that we consider solar, at least making a roof solar ready. I don't know if that's possible. Having a roof solar panel ready, if that's possible. I don't know that we've discussed it or if it's too late in the game, but just a note for any time we're building.
There is an area on the south side of the building where there could be solar panels.
Okay.
Let me get the perspective. Let me get the view.
You'd be talking a conduit. You'd be burying a conduit in the wall for those to come down to the.
Right.
For possible future installation if we couldn't do
Well,
that.
and it might not be so hard because as I understand it, all the electricals are all on the second floor. Everything's coming from above, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So you're not even running the same distance.
Right.
You know, I'm installing it now and we're running from the roof to a basement and
Yeah.
in an old building, it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so as long as something like that, if we can plan that in now, rather than have to try and come back to it and not be able to do it, would be great.
If, let me go, if you look at this view here, that is the south side of the building. So there's quite a bit of area all along here and all along there that could be solar panels. And it does face almost due south.
And maybe, I imagine that might be something that might be hard to get by HDC right now. But again, as long as it's solar ready, that would be my biggest request.
they're a little more, if it covers a full plane and if it's not like the first thing you see driving down the street, they're, even though it's in the old historic district, they're a little more lenient, I think, than they were. And so they're hoping, but if it was the first thing you'd see, they would be less likely to do it. How much of the first floor is bathrooms? It seems like most of it is bathrooms.
It's almost all bathrooms.
Was there any and then there's an office, but then there's another office upstairs? This is a crazy idea, but was there any consideration to have that be all concrete all the way up? Because that's all concrete and tiled. You do a bathroom, if it floods, who cares? You take the hoses and you hose it out and you're done, and put all the offices on the second floor. Is there any, and that might buy a little more space for parking. It was just a thought.
During the design portion of this, working with the committee, there's approximately 10 employees during the summertime, 10 or 12 people. So if the harbor master needs to get any work done, needs to get someplace where she can do the work, which would be in the upper office.
Right.
Plus the visibility from the upper office is
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Keep her at the upper office. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm not.
I think there needs to be somebody who's accessible from the first floor for the public.
I'm trying to find a way.
Smaller.
I'm trying to find a way to, just to ensure. Yeah. Anyway.
Any other questions?
None for me. Thank you.
And I mean, one more comment is I love the family bathroom. Those are super important. And I mean, this whole situation will be such an improvement on what's there now. And I really like the bottle filling station and the dog station.
Okay.
But I would like to reiterate to try and work on that parking so that we don't lose what we have now.
Yeah, well, just quick thoughts on that. I was looking at a map. If you have if everybody parks perfectly and the cars aren't too big, you can get 4 in there. And the fourth one, the one all the way to the left, kind of blocks where you walk, so you can the crosswalk, so you can get 4. But I would say if we can at least have 3 spots that can be pulled in and out of. And if the fourth one has to be, for Sheila or the one by the outbuilding, that's fine. In my opinion, an outbuilding seems like a really nice to have. It would be very, very useful, but it would be a nice to have.
Anything else? Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having
You've
us.
got plenty of time to catch the boat.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Did you have something else? Sorry.
No.
Okay. Okay, next we have committee reports. We have the CRC chair here to go over those allocations. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi. Hi. I'll wait for the allocations to come up. First, I would like to say to the select board that on behalf of the CRC and all the human service providers, we are very grateful for the additional allocation of funds this year. We understand the work that was done by everybody to give it to us, and we understand it's a one-time thing, but we are very appreciative for this year. So thank you. Okay, we're going to start with the Safe Place. I'm just going to give you just a little bit for people that don't know what it is that might be listening, but the Safe Place, the program they've asked funding for is for court advocacy, children to witness violence program, and outreach and prevention therapy, as well as emergency services. So for years, the Safe Places basically remained at the same funding requests. Last year, they got 10 because there was a gift that was given to them. But this is the first year that they've actually asked for an increase, and we've given to them. The biggest thing that we noticed this year, or concern for us as the CRC, was the fact that they had 23 children in the Children Witness to Violence program, and that's pretty alarming for us. But anyway, Safe Place, we were awarding the $50,000 to. 55, sorry. The Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention is a prevention program. It does for addiction, alcohol. They do family programs. They do educational programs for the community. They work on mental health issues. A lot of them, they're doing collaboration with Fairwinds, Gosnold, the Athenaeum. We would love to see them be a bigger in our school district because it's a place where it's lacking. And we would love to see the support of the community to see the programs get into the school. They've asked for $44,000 this year. We are supporting that. They are looking, just so everybody knows, to maybe go in with NAMI in the future, which will give them a better foundation to work off of. We're going to go to Elder Services of Cape Cod. This is for their Meals to Wheels program. It serves 76 elders in the community. And one of the bigger things about this program that's important is that it's also, for some, the only time they get to see anybody. It's their only communication, and that can go back to Sherry Hunt, and therefore provide services if needed for families that are there. This contribution of $20,000 pays for about 15% of what the program actually costs to run on Nantucket. And we believe that this is one of the more vital programs because there aren't a lot of these programs that actually support the elders in the community.
Do they fundraise the remaining?
The rest of it, they get through federal and state grants.
All right, great.
The next is Health Imperatives. Health Imperatives is, I have to say that in the last few years that we've watched Health Imperatives, I will tell you that this is one amazing organization. If they tell us they're going to do something, they not only do it at 50%, they do it at 250%. They are one of the only programs on the island that that actually offers free health services for a lot of the immigration population and for anybody that is underinsured. There are 64% of Nantucketers have no insurance or are underinsured. And both male and female can go to Health Imperatives. They run programs through the community school on parenting, on healthy babies. They have the WIC program there now. They have a kiosk to get food stamps. They're unbelievable. And if you could see the facility that they run out of, it is unbelievable the services they do. In January, they increased by 20 people, 20 more clients. We're seeing in January in the same building, in the same time, same clinical hours. And I really I think the board should just go up and see them one day and see what they perform out of that small building and those little rooms. And some of the most amazing people in this community running that program. But anyway, okay. So they asked for $75,000, and we happily awarded them the $75,000. Fair Winds program is for the mental health program and the sliding fees. So if you are underinsured or not insured, Fair Winds offers mental health at a sliding fee that we pay for, the town of Nantucket pays for. They have gone through a lot of changes. One of the things that they used to run is the Mentoring Youth program. By the end of this fiscal year, they will not be running the Mentoring Youth. The Breakfast Buddies and tutorial programs are moving over to the school district, and they are looking for a house for the one-on-one Mentoring Youth program. But as of everything, mental health is a vital part of this community. And for that reason, we support and they've made a lot of changes, and we're pretty proud of the work they're doing up there. They asked for $242,000. They did have an issue last year not having enough money to run their programs, were coming for a town warrant article, which they are pulling. But they were able to get the grant money to cover the last year's debts, and as we see this, we believe that they have shown us that that they are able to pull those grants. So we gave them $116,291.87. Martha's Vineyard Community Services is a program run, and I know it has the name Martha's Vineyard, but that's only because that's where their office is. But they run a program here on the island, and it helps with children with special needs. And Kathy Hackett, who's been running this program, has been running it for 28 years. She's the support system to the families. She's also a support system that the school uses for educational purposes. They run educational programs. She takes families to medical treatments off island. She's here as an advocacy program here, and is somebody, I have never met anybody that goes to work and for 28 years goes with a smile and says she can't wait for tomorrow to happen because she can't wait for the challenge of the next day. I think we're really blessed to have her. So an $18,000 actually just helps cover some of the transportation fees, because they actually bring families also to Boston for testing or anywhere that they might need to go. And part of her time here on the island, they just hired Renee Gambroni, and she is now the on-island advocate, which helps with the program. Okay, South Coast Legal Services offers free legal services here on the island. They're available one time a month. They work with the seniors on some of the government programs that they're available for. They work with immigration, housing, and domestic violence. The 4,500 just covers their travel back and forth to the island. And if we look at what they did about $24,000 worth of services last year for the clients that they saw. So we figured this is probably one of the best deals in town. The Interfaith Council, which is the rental and food assistance, requested $75,000. We're awarding them $70,000. This year they have seen, I think it's 766 families for, I think it's 6,556 visits to the food pantry. 217 of them have happened between the end of July and January. They also are helping 30 families right now with rental assistance, and they're at about $130,000 have been given in rental assistance. And they have 40 clients that they're helping with fuel assistance. This is a very vital part of our community, and the $70,000 actually goes to the administration costs of that. Nantucket Cottage Hospital Social Service Department. This was an amended application, as you can see up there. It will, this year, it's taking not only the social service department, but actually the ambulatory service is actually in it too. The ambulatory service last year serviced 36 people for mental health. And when they came to us with this, we sort of went back and forth with the Cottage Hospital for a while over their original application and programming. And this came up as something that was a very important part of the social services or services that the hospital can render. So we have allotted them $211,123.32. Small Friends is the after-school program that provides nutrition and extended day. And as obesity is one of the major problems in our country right now, any nutritional program for children to learn proper nutrition or to get proper nutrition, we feel is vital. Also, for families to be able to have extended work hours and a place where they have a trusted clientele. What is interesting is Small Friends has 69 students. They have 140 on the waiting list, which is huge. And when we look at the amount of children documented in the last 5 years, there's been 766 births. We have over 500 children right now that are not placed anywhere in daycare. So we can see where the need is huge for daycare on the island. The Artists Association, that's a new one for us. They are offering art therapy. And studies have proven that art therapy is a great way to perform for mental health. It helps with stress. It's a different way for families or for children and adults to let go of some of the things that are really bothering them and through the arts. The hands-on experience that one can have in forming something or doing something productive with their hands has proven in studies to be clinically a positive program. Anything that we believe that can help with the mental health on the island, we are supporting. This is their first year. They've asked for $18,200 to run this program, and we are endorsing that completely. And Cape Mediation is a program that runs in the district court and provides mediation for small claims, and that way it opens up the court system for the things that is needed. In the total allocations, we are allocating $650,000. One of the most important things that came out this year in our allocations and in our deliberations is that we believe it's time that these private nonprofits go to a roundtable conversation with us in working in collaboration to get bigger grants that are available in federal, state levels. It's the best way I can describe it, I described it to somebody the other day, is you have an 18-wheel truck and you have some really valuable cargo in the back of that truck. And every single wheel is really important. If you have one flat or one that's not willing to, that's overinflated or flat, that truck cannot move with that valuable merchandise. And every single one of these people up here are the most valuable merchandise this community has right now. The services they render for us are absolutely unbelievable. But unless we're all on the same page and that truck tires are all going the same way, we can't move that merchandise and help it to where it really has to get to. So our hopes are with opening up these conversations, we can get that truck going up that road and getting to better places.
Just a comment. I just, every time you come and do this, I'm impressed with the thoroughness of the work that your committee does and the thoroughness of the report. And I have, kind of complete trust that you've done your homework. It's really good.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will say that I just want everybody to know, I think that we have one of the most dynamic committees because nobody's afraid to question each other at the table and nobody's afraid to debate each other. And then if it comes up, nobody is afraid to go ask the vendors the truth and find out what's really going on. And I think everybody does their research to come back and give to the island what we think is really valuable. So thank you, Matt.
Yeah, which explains why part of it's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm really glad we were able to give you the additional funding this year.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I think that these programs would have been in trouble, but I'm hoping that those bigger grants can be worked out.
We are too. We are too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, next we have gift acceptances under consent items.
Motion to approve and send letters of thanks.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Citizen departmental request, town clerk request for appointment of constable. John
Move
Stover.
approval.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, Nantucket Island Chamber of Commerce. These are requests for Daffodil. Christy is recusing. Does anybody have any questions on?
Hi, I'm Carmen with the Chamber, and I'm here to answer any questions you have about the permits or anything.
We just had one discussion today just about really defining where the vicinity of the alcohol during the picnic.
During the picnic, okay.
Because now it's expanded.
So I wanted to address this as far as the, are you speaking about the second motion where releasing the public consumption of alcohol? So we've had a discussion with the chamber, and the chamber's been great working on this too, as well as we've seen over the past few years. There's been some concerns as far as understanding what this means and what this event, the traditional kind of meaning of this event. When we do this and release a public consumption of alcohol bylaw, it is so that folks that are going and setting up picnics and things of that sort are bringing their own beverages and food for consumption at their picnics for their friends and things of that sort, and they won't be subject to the bylaw that prohibits that on public spaces of consuming that alcohol. What we've seen in the past few years is some instances of bars being set up in a commercial sense, and this isn't indicting a whole group of folks, but there's been a couple of things where some commercial entities have set up tables, and there's been bars, and there's been service to the public, which is not the intent of this. Again, it's for personal consumption of alcohol in those spaces across from the antique cars in Sconset. For, again, personal consumption of alcohol. So they have gotten a message out too through businesses as well, and we are doing that as well. So we just wanted to kind of publicly state that that was the intent of this, and not for any commercial activity or for active service to the public. If neighbor Joe walks by and wants to sit down and have, a beer with you, great, in public space. So that's kind of what that message is. Is that?
That's really good to hear too,
Okay.
but I think what we were talking about is to just clearly define the area where walking around and having
Correct.
things set up can be.
So as far as walking with an open container, that is, again, it has been on the lawns across, and with obviously the setup of the cars, has been from just the area from the monument kind of down to where the cars are parked in that general area. We do have, correct.
But now Bunker
within-
Road will
with-
be included.
With the road as well, it'll be hard to sit there and get back on the grass. So it's more of we have barriers at the end of each, and it's going to be probably that space with the vehicles and that such. And, we have obviously police details there. They're there for safety and security, and then volunteers and such. So if that area, we're going to add additional, they have, portable restrooms there. We're working on trash pickup and things of that sort. So better maintenance and more volunteers in that area as well. So that seems to be probably, I think, the best way to manage that space. And as long as I think we kind of maintain that and what the intent of this event is for, and the chamber, and we'll speak more about this in the public assembly permit, but they are certainly creating more opportunities downtown for folks that are going to be downtown, for businesses, for promoting businesses and such. So if there are businesses that want to do so, they can work with the chamber for that. So there's those opportunities. It's just not on the streets of Sconset for that day. That makes sense. Okay.
As long as you have a handle on it.
Yeah, well, no, and they've been great. It's one of those things, again, it's not everybody, but we just start to see it going that way, and the chamber's been great too. And again, they're creating other opportunities for businesses as well downtown, so which is great.
I would make a motion to approve both A and B.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Next, public hearing.
Public hearing, this is public hearing to consider public assembly permit application for Nantucket Island Chamber of Commerce 2020 Daffodil Festival Antique Card Parade to be held Saturday, April 25th, located at Main Street, Federal Street, and North Union Street. Now, we're having a public hearing because there's an expansion.
Correct.
under
So, in
this,
generally,
and
in
so
these
open the public hearing.
Correct. Thank you. So because when we have these public assembly permits, public assembly by definition is going to be large events on public space that exceed 250 participants, which this obviously does. So any extension, we like to kind of bring it back before the board, any sort of change to the permit. So this year, to accommodate, and the chamber can expand, but as per the application, obviously the demand to participate in the parade has grown. So we're increasing kind of the space for staging of some of these vehicles, which again, we worked through with a lot of departments. There's no concerns there. They're going to reroute kind of how this works. But we're requesting closure of the North Union Street from Maine to Cambridge there in that red spot. And Federal from Maine to India, which I believe we did last year. It didn't come back here. Yeah, it was done. So anyway, so we're adding it this year. And they have, as you can respectfully comment on, let's see, the parade is limited to 110. They do sometimes have those waiting lists. Right now it's over 20 vehicles, majority being Nantucket residents. So that would be to accommodate that, correct?
Yes. We, as of right now, we have 35 on the waiting list, and of those 35, 30 of them are from Nantucket. We've had a waiting list since starting February 1st, so and we're getting them daily.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this? Okay, hearing none.
I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll close the public hearing. Just want to make sure that you didn't have questions. I'll close the public hearing. Go make your motion.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to jump to select board reports and comments to review the annual town meeting warrant and see if we want to add any comments in addition to the FinCom and planning board recommendations.
I'm not quite sure how you want to do this, but I think typically you go through the articles one by one, and obviously a lot of them are routine that you don't have comments on. So if you're okay with doing that. The warrant right at the moment, just so everybody knows what the status of it is, the FinCom has finished all of its motions and comments. The planning board has finished all of its motions and comments. And now the select board will make any comments to any of the articles that it wishes. We are working to finish this off with whatever you all add tonight, fix up the formatting, get in the page numbers, things like that, get it off to the printer as soon as possible so that it can be mailed out to all of the voters prior to town meeting. And as soon as it's ready, it'll be posted online. So people, tomorrow, Erica is telling me, so people will be able to see it, and we'll get it out on social media as well. So Article 1, you typically do not comment on. Receipt of reports. Article 2, unpaid bills, same thing. Article 3 is an appropriation of prior year articles that are either over and have funding left or aren't quite finished and need more money, and there's some reallocations there. You don't usually comment on those. Article 4, revolving accounts. These are the spending limits for fiscal 2021. You don't usually comment on those. Article 5 is the reserve fund appropriation for the next fiscal year. No comment typically. Article 6 is fiscal 2020, the current fiscal year budget transfers for the general fund. No comments. Article 7 is the personnel compensation plans for fiscal 2021. That is mostly all of the workers that are sort of, not year-round full-time typically. There's a list of them there. We have increased the seasonal employee compensation schedule by, I think it was 50 cents per hour. You don't usually comment on that. This is where your salaries, your gigantic salaries, are located. Article 8 is the
We should change that.
Oh, yes, we didn't do that.
Good catch.
Ouch. Thank you. Article 8 is the fiscal 2021 general fund operating budget. You don't typically comment on that, and that has gone through the FinCom review process. Article 9 is the appropriation for health and human services, which you just heard about from Dorothy. Thank you, Dorothy, if she is still around.
It says select member in here, in the one I've got.
Schedule C,
It's right in this one.
It's right in the actual, not in the motion.
Oh, I'm looking in the wrong
Motion
spot.
didn't get
Oh, it's the
changed.
motion that didn't get changed, I see.
Article 10 is the general fund capital. Article 10 typically does not have a comment by you all, but just to point out, there is a capital override associated with this, which is in the ballot as well.
That's one of the first ones I marked.
Okay.
Specifically maybe for Newtown Road. I think that's, something we should make I think we should make a comment. I think that the construction of the public safety facility here has impacted that road substantially. I'd like to really support it and see that the work is done. I would like to design a safe, sort of inclusive urban street there rather than, a raceway with a couple speed bumps. So I think we should say something about that so that people will support it. I think it's really important.
Okay, so you're talking about Article 11,
Okay, sorry.
which is the Newtown appropriation for transportation improvements along that road.
I'm ahead. Yeah, there you go.
Of 1.154 million. That is also a ballot question.
Which was the capital?
Article 10 is the one I was. It's several of the items. It's the capital exclusions that are, the tax rate increases for 1 year, and it's just for several of the capital items. I think it's mostly equipment. So 11, did you want to have a supportive comment?
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would add to that, Matt, it's also
Part
part
of
of
our
our strategic plan.
Right.
Sorry,
There you go.
I jumped the gun there.
I also just had a general comment about that when we're doing presentations before town meeting, making sure we have maybe a design layout or what we're planning to do. People might just see reconstruction of Newtown Road and people get scared of roundabouts and things like that. And so showing what we really have planned for sidewalks, I think, is a really important aspect in public outreach.
We've done that in the past. Will we have something like that ready for this town
We
meeting?
usually have boards.
Well, we're not going to have, a full-on plan, but we can certainly discuss what the types of improvements are. This has already gone through Capcom. It would be, Rob, add to or correct me if I'm saying this wrong. It would be a reconstructed road. There would be a sidewalk at least on one side. I'm not sure about two. That's going to depend on the design and what, if any, right-of-way acquisitions need to be made. You can see that there's 2 speed humps there now, and those would, be improved and be worked into a road reconstruction. The sidewalks actually probably be multi-use path, not so much of a specific sidewalk. And there would be some kind of connections at either end, more into the roadways on either end. I'm not sure what other improvements there would be.
And just the comment I made at NPDDC on this is I think we need to start recognizing that streets like that are urban streets. They're not suburban. I think that it should have trees and sidewalk, and you drive down it, you can see the path that people are wearing on the right side because they're walking along all the way. And so once we know the width, we'll know how much we can do. On-street parking, I don't know if it's even possible there, but stuff like that can slow people down where you don't need to have, you can do neck downs and you don't have to have speed bumps. So, and we're early in the process, and I just, at NPDC and here, and I just want to sort of make it aware that we need to start thinking about some of these town areas are urban, and we should think about, doing them properly once. So
So I don't know that we're gonna have an answer at town meeting if somebody says, are we going to have on-street parking? For example, and I don't know if we want to get into that level of detail, but it's likely that would require some kind of property acquisition. I'm not really sure what the road layout is.
And it may not, we may not need that, but I think we should be looking at the full width and making it, as safe and, as urban designed as possible. I just think we need to, and we may not get there, but I'm gonna keep banging away at that because it's where we're heading. Those areas, one lot now has 4 homes now. So I think and that's great, but we need to accommodate the traffic and the walking and the biking and the things that are all going to increase in those areas in a safe manner.
So perhaps your comment would be something along the lines of you support the FinCom motion, which I'm not even sure you really need to say since it's your article to begin with. Right. But maybe emphasize that this is an important project. It's a board goal to have the connection from this area to downtown safely with supporting pedestrian and bike access, something along those lines. Maybe I can run it by you, Dawn, before we totally finish it off.
Yeah, I had written construction of public safety facility has impacted Newtown Road. The select board would like to design safe, inclusive urban street or safe, inclusive street. I feel like we have an obligation to correct something that sort of we've done. So
Okay, I think I get the gist.
Okay. I mean, I think it's set.
12 is the board's article again for reconstruction of Lover's Lane, $3.2 million. This is also subject to a ballot question. I don't know if you want to make a comment on that one.
No, any visuals will help, even if it's just a basic map with, here's where a potential, bike path would go, here's where it starts and ends. So I think we're going to get questions on stormwater, flooding issues, which isn't really on Lover's Lane. Is that part of it? I think just being prepared.
I think that bike route connection from Old South Road towards the beaches is huge.
Yep.
But I don't know that we need to comment on this one.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't think if we don't comment, I think it puts more of an emphasis on Newtown Road in a way, strategically.
I see what you did there, Matt. Now you set us up for comment on everything now.
I won't. I've got a few, though. Keep going.
Okay, 13 is construction and improvements to Amelia Drive and Waite Drive. Again, a board article, $3.7 million. This is also subject to a ballot question. The one thing I've heard on this one is whether or not a roundabout is associated with it. And there have, maybe it's been a little unclear with various documents that have been around, but there is not a roundabout associated with this particular set of improvements.
Maybe we need to put that on all of these road construction.
The no roundabout sign. A circle with a line through it.
This one was, I wouldn't say it was confusing, but we went round and round at Capcom on this one to figure out how much of it is Amelia Drive, how much of it is Waite Drive, how much was it, did we put in a Waite Drive in the last 3 or 4 years? What did that go to? So I don't think we need, it's not a part of the comment, but as we get closer to town meeting, try and explain really what it's for. How much Amelia, how much Waite. It will help everybody understand.
Okay, 14 is construction and improvements to Children's Beach Stormwater Pump Station. I think you all know about this, and DPW Director gave an update on it a few weeks ago. Good, okay. 15 is the fiscal 2021 enterprise funds budgets. Now, this does have this is the Island Home override. So there's language in the FinCom motion that $5 million override, $5 million of the Island Home budget will be contingent upon the passage of a 2.5 override. FinCom does have a comment on this one.
I just want to thank FinCom, for their comment, because I thought they did a great job sort of summarizing the key points. So,
and I would have 3 other key points. I think it's the wrong signal to the state because they would like not to fund us anyway. It takes the pressure off us to get the structural deficit and the needs we have to do figured out, and it's not connected to an underride. But I know that I'm not in the, I'm saying that for the record. I know I'm not in the majority on this issue, but.
Do we want to make a comment on it otherwise?
On 15? I don't.
I think the FinCom committee, they've summarized it.
The other thing that when I read in the paper, it's kind of like this is people are sort of believe that it's a indication of how we support it, and I don't believe that that's what I'm doing or that the board is doing. And the paper keeps talking about how if we don't support our old people, we don't support the Island Home if we don't do this. And I don't think that's it at all. I'm saying we support them, but we have some stuff to still figure out. And I think that's lost in translation, so anyway.
I mean, I disagree with that. Meanwhile, while we figure it out, we need to fund it. Or we have to cut other services, so.
I don't think I don't think we have to for another year, but that's all right.
Well, we've been saying that for 3 years.
Matt, I have heard that kind of rumor. I was on a Frank and Mary show, interviewed, and they said, if this doesn't pass, Island Home's going to close at the end of the year. And I shot that rumor down. Has nothing to do with it, and try to get to the bigger picture and try to show both sides. But that is kind of circulating around.
But the reality is that we need more services, and we're going to have to rework our budget to be able to continue to properly fund the Island Home. It's not that we're planning on closing it,
right.
But this is to fund it the right way.
Yeah, and I think we do need to have the talking points, because I think that is an unfortunate and dangerous rumor. That was definitely not the intention of the board, I don't believe. So I think being prepared to explain that would be important.
And the underride comment I keep making, I'm not sure people understand. I mean, once this is done, it goes up 2.5% forever. The money that it replaces is available for other uses. So we're going to say, and so it's sort of, anyway, I mean, this, I'm sure, I probably won't even speak at the town meeting, but I'm sure there are some people who will, who understand this and, and feel pretty strongly. And I think that we're on the right path. I think that we've got, stuff coming up this month and next month, and we may get there and have something great, but, and I would like to keep the pressure on us to have that happen. I don't want it all to go away and be at special town meeting again next fall.
The pressure's not off because of this.
Okay.
We don't need to continue to debate that tonight.
Article 16 is enterprise fund capital expenditures, and I don't know that there's anything in there that you don't already know about. FinCom does not have a comment. All of that went through Capcom and FinCom and everything. 17 is enterprise fund budget transfers for the current fiscal year. They're all listed there. I don't know that there would be any need for a board comment. 18 is the annual appropriation for the Waterways Improvement Fund. Typically no comment there. 19 is the ambulance reserve. Typically no comment. 20 is the ferry embarkation fee. Typically no comment. 21 is the county assessment. Typically no comment. 22, just to explain this a little bit more, although this is the same thing every year, this is a placeholder article entitled Finalizing the Fiscal Year 2021 County Budget, and it's only in the warrant in the event that the Select Board, acting as the county commissioners, and the Finance Committee, acting as the County Review Committee, were to disagree about the county budget, and this would be an opportunity for the county commissioners to put forward what they wanted. However, to date, there has never been a disagreement like that, so it is a move to take no action. Always has been. No FinCom comment. 23, rescind unused borrowing authority. This is also something of a placeholder in case we had items that we needed to rescind unused borrowing authority for, but we do not have any right now. 24 is Other Post-Employment Benefits Trust Fund, OPEB. This is the annual $500,000 appropriation that we've been doing, typically no board comment. 25 is the fiscal 2021 senior work-off program. We haven't always had an article for this, but I guess from time to time we need to fund the work that the seniors who are eligible are performing. Yes, Brian? No FinCom comment there. Articles 26 and 27 are both adding funds to special purpose stabilization funds. 26 is for airport employee accrued liabilities. 27 is for town employee accrued liabilities. And these are for when people retire or leave who are typically longtime people who may have a lot of vacation and sick time that has to be paid back. And this allows that to happen more flexibly. 28 is amending the purpose of a special stabilization fund that's already been established for substance abuse prevention efforts. And this was to add mental health programs in addition to substance abuse programs. And this is where the marijuana money will be going, the tax revenue. 29, you know about, is an appropriation for Harbor Place professional services, $150,000. That'll come from free cash. FinCom supports it, but there is no comment. I don't know if you want to. It's pretty explanatory, I think, the motion.
Do we want to add anything? It's our article.
We could say select board support FinCom motion. I don't know. Either way, it's important.
I didn't know if we wanted to say something like this is a really important opportunity for us to thoroughly vet, something along those lines.
We don't have to.
I marked it either way.
If we're going to say something, it needs to be specific and a little longer versus then we just support it because it doesn't look like we support the other ones, like you said earlier.
We're talking about.
Well, do you want me to try to come up with something that is sort of specific like that? It's important that this is an opportunity, like unlike some of the other articles, this maybe is an opportunity that comes along very rarely. Right. And it's important that the town be at the table, as we've been saying. And
have the resources. There you go.
Right, yeah, exactly.
For public benefit.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go.
And transportation improvements.
It's water quality, it's transportation, it's a bunch of
It's
things.
everything that's
once in a
strategic
lifetime
plan.
opportunity.
Yeah.
They've been saying once in a generation, so they've been marketing it.
Sorry. If anybody thinks of another reason, just email it to me later. Okay, 30, Nantucket Islands Land Bank financing. You've heard about this when the Land Bank came in and requested that you put this article in for them. FinCom is supporting it. And I don't think they had a comment.
And when will we do this MOU?
We will do it after.
Okay.
But before, I think that they actually launch into anything, right? Yeah.
What was the concern of the FinCom to add sort of this language? We've done this 2 or 3 times without this language. What was the?
I don't know that this was necessarily FinCom language. This was bond council language, I believe.
Okay.
31 is a citizen article, but on behalf of the Community Preservation Committee for fiscal 20 budget transfers. 32, same thing, but for fiscal 21, community preservation recommended projects. Article 33 is a citizen article, the appropriation for Fairwinds, which it was a not to adopt by FinCom with a comment. However, I believe that in the interim, in any case, Fairwinds was going to withdraw or request that it not come up.
I think we should add a comment to this, if we could, supporting the Finance Committee comment about we really want people to go through the CRC process, that we have this process in place of how the town funds nonprofits and human resources or human services, and supporting that we continue doing it that way.
So supportive of the FinCom comment? Okay.
Good comment.
Yeah, I think that's a
Good comment on their comment.
Yeah, and
Same thing on the next one.
that is what they did in the end. So I don't know if we appreciate that they went through the process that is there. But yeah, I think that's a good one.
Same thing with 34, which is also a citizen article. This was for the ambulance transport cost. Yeah. 35 is a citizen article for an appropriation for the incineration of solid waste. This is a not to adopt with a FinCom comment.
I think this would be one where it might be worth mentioning that, we are taking all of the options into consideration, and it is part of our strategic plan, so that it is in support of the FinCom comment, but just reiterating that we are thinking about these things.
Yeah, I wrote something quickly before the meeting. I said something along the lines, select board support the FinCom recommendation. Mr. Williams, hang on. Select board support Mr. Williams' interest, and jointly with staff plan to explore all alternative locations and technologies. Long-term viability adjacent to Long Pond and storm tide pathways is of critical concern. Something like that is what I was thinking.
I like that.
Maybe you can send me that.
I can.
We're going to have
I'll
a
type
really tight window here tomorrow to get this stuff done in the morning. So
During executive session.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, yeah.
I'll type it as you go.
Okay. 36 is a citizen article, an appropriation without an actual amount for a legal opinion for beach access. That is a not to adopt by FinCom. No comment.
I saw MPDC commented. Do those tend to go on the warrant as well, or is that just for us? Okay.
That's just an FYI for you.
Now, if we wanted, we could adopt that comment.
I'm okay not adopting their comment. I was just wondering if their comment would be published.
Right. Yeah. The MPDC comment for people to hear. Public access to the shores and waters surrounding Nantucket have long been supported by the MPDC and voters. Therefore, if there are additional opportunities for public access, they should be explored. And so it's not saying, we're accepting the combination, but I think it's a pretty good comment.
I'm not sure. I think it seems, because I don't think we've finished this conversation, it feels a little misleading.
Yeah.
But I do think it's something that we as a board will be continuing to discuss.
Okay, I'm not hearing a comment coming out of that. Okay. 37 is a citizen article, an appropriation for hazardous waste. That is a not to adopt by FinCom. .38 is a citizen article to reestablish the Park and Recreation Department. That is a not to adopt by FinCom. No comment.
And that's another one that had a comment to us from NPDC. The adequacy of public parks and recreational facilities is a planning concern. However, we do not take a position of whether or not Park and Rec Department should be reestablished. We agree with the proponent that more financial and resources should be dedicated to our parks and recreational areas. That's from the NPDC.
I personally agree with that comment. I don't know if it should be in there or not.
I mean, we have been, that's why we've been working on the Parks Master Plan.
Yeah.
I think we can
that's a good point.
add a comment.
I don't think it's in, unless we all felt really strongly about it, but I agree with MPDC's comment.
I would agree, but it also seems large enough. I mean, we do have the Parks Master Plan. It seems large enough that, again, to focus on this to the extent that the article's requesting, it strikes me as something that would be part of one of our goals in the strategic plan. Something along quality of life or something along those lines. But I don't think at this stage we're really able to put the resources that direction. Or at least make a comment that we are.
Okay, 39 through 61 are all zoning articles. They all have planning board motions and/or comments, as well as FinCom comments, which mostly support the planning board motions.
We
I
don't,
I
we
wasn't really going to go
leave
through
it
each
to
one of
them.
these, but
don't usually comment on.
No, not usually.
Well, I've got a couple that on there. Zoning map change 45, Francis Union, Washington. Just a question, was resiliency taken into consideration on that map change? You know, the impacts, is that map change substantive RC to CN in that district?
Maybe Andrew wants to answer
It's
that.
sort of an Andrew question. And maybe they talked about it, and we can move on.
Which article is that?
45.
That was 45.
I think to the extent that it's lesser intensity than what is currently allowed in the current district.
Right,
It addresses it. It's less ground cover, larger minimum lot sizes.
All right, good. So that's a good thing. And then and the next question was the same thing on SR1. This is 46, SR1 to SOH. So we're going Sconset, SR1 to SOH
Right.
on a bunch of parcels, sort of Codfish Park in the next row back.
Right. This is a situation in Sconset where half of essentially historic Sconset is not in the old historic district. So this is something that is supported by the Sconset Trust. And this actually just matches exactly what's there.
So there will be no changes by matching?
It's
Or-
one of the few areas that already has actually 50% or more ground cover. This is all of the little small buildings.
Right.
And because height is so tightly regulated there, that's where it's usually made up and a little bit extra ground cover.
Okay. All right. I just wanted, so those are, if that was addressed, then I'm fine with that too. I just, on the areas that are going to be, we want to make sure that we're not investing more and more and more into areas that are going to be hazarded in 10, 15, 20 years. So I'm just making sure. Okay. Thank you. '48, I think we should support the planning board and the historical commission strongly on that. 48 is the swimming pool article.
I have concerns with that. My understanding is that the process wasn't followed the way it was when this was done in ROH, that the residents have not been polled on this article. And I don't agree with it. I think it's an important discussion to have at town meeting, but I wouldn't be in support of us making a comment on it. I'm not quite sure where it's even coming from, since it's not initiated by residents of the zoning district.
Well, I think
What kind of problem we're trying to solve?
Well, we've talked a bit about it in MPDC. Andrew could probably fill us in. There was a lot of give and take between sort of both sides of this to come up with this recommendation. And I think the letter from Historic Commission was spot on that we received this afternoon. So anyway, but Andrew, if you want to explain to the board how you guys derived it, it would be great.
Sure. So this is an article that was initiated by planning board members. There was a similar article submitted last year. There's been, I think you all know, there's been ongoing debate about swimming pools, whether they're appropriate or not. When the old historic district, basically the article that banned pools completely from the old historic district, there was a survey done of that particular area. And in Nantucket, there was a neighborhood, as part of the area plan, there was concern brought forward and basically participation by citizens there. In this case, the board feels that they had gotten, I think, extensive concerns expressed by many for swimming pools on the smallest lots that are adjacent to the old historic district. So after much debate and compromise among the different members, they settled on the warrant article that you have before you. So 7,500 is, the minimum lot size in these districts is 5,000. So if you have a lot that's, slightly bigger than the 5,000, you still can have the swimming pool, albeit with the larger setbacks. But I think the concern that you've heard from, different quarters of the town, whether, I don't know what that represents, but there's certainly, I think the planning board members that this was a unanimous vote on their part to bring this forward with a positive recommendation. So,
But what zoning issue are they trying to solve?
the zoning issue, I think, is that a swimming pool that takes up an entire yard and is basically contrary to the setting of those particular properties. So they found that it changes the character of the properties. It seems, I think the testimony that we heard was that these tend to become just resort-type rental properties versus houses. And again, these are on the smallest lots. So
I think of the HTC hearing we had where the people cited a pool right next, the HTC forced them to cite a pool right next to the kitchen window of the neighbors who live there year round. And it was rented out and the people were yelling and screaming. They're going to be yelling and screaming outside their window all summer. I think that's the impetus of this. And it's the Historic Commission letter spoke about the view sheds and the rural character of these areas that will, that are changing because we're asking everything to be screened now, which we never used to do, a whole different issue. But so I think it's important.
I think it will be an interesting discussion on town meeting floor. I mean, the board can, I'm not going to support making a comment on it.
Why didn't the finance committee support it?
Yeah, that was my question. Oh, yeah.
Good evening. I'm Denise Cronow for the Finance Committee. Oops. So our, as Andrew stated, the other times that pools have been restricted, there was a survey, and there was a majority thought that there should be no pools. And when you look at last year's article about the pools, they suggested in that article as a comment that they would do a survey before they brought back any other pool article, which they did not do. Number one. Number two, we looked at it, and this affects 777 properties that would be restricted from having pools if and when this passed. And so we felt that, if you look at from a property value perspective, that properties values are increased when they have pools. So, and these are properties that always thought they could have pools before. Now, we didn't have an understanding or a sense that 777 people were going to run out and get pools in any case, right? So that's the second piece of it. And the last piece of it was for us is that the HDC approves all pools. So the HCC can deny it, and they can't be visible from the street. So in the end, there is a control mechanism to this. And so when we put all of that together, that there wasn't the public outreach as suggested in last year's article, there's a potential not people being able to not increase their property value through construction of a pool. And lastly, that the HDC can control this in any case. We had a lot of discussion on this, and we watched all the discussion from myself and several other of the FinCom members watched all the YouTube planning board pool discussions. So we didn't go into this at all lightly in terms of where we came down on it. So that's where we ended up. Thank you.
Of the 700 properties?
777.
How many does anyone know? I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot, but how many are in storm pathways? How many are adjacent to wetlands? How many are near ponds, et cetera?
I mean,
we don't know that?
No. I mean, I for sure don't know it.
Right.
I would be surprised because we don't even know, we don't know how many already have pools now. It's not possible to know that. So of the R1 and R5.
Right.
So.
Right, because that's the other concern in this, that they're getting shoehorned in. There's substantial impact to the harbor from these. In a lot of areas, they pump them. They force people to pump them when they clean them, and people think saltwater pools are salt water, and they're great. They're the most polluting pool you can have. It puts in chemicals into the harbor that never disappear.
I think the Board of Health is addressing that by regulation.
Well, they are, but have we ever seen a pump truck driving around? We've got pictures from neighbors who are showing us pictures of the pool water going down the dirt road. That's all going into Myacomet. The one we saw was going directly into Myacomet Pond. And so I just think this is,
I get
Anyway.
that concern, but it's a totally separate issue than fixing it with zoning and pinpointing two zoning districts and saying that now those people who always thought that they could have something if they wanted it can't have it, and none of them have been asked. Like, how is that an appropriate way to govern, to not even ask the people that are impacted? I think maybe there does need to be a broader discussion had about pools altogether, but to backdoor try and fix that you don't like pools through zoning it's just not the right way to go about it. To not even ask the people who live there.
Dawn, I understand your position. I understand your invested interest in this. I get it, but we didn't. Hang on, Lon, let me finish. I'll let you talk. When they did it downtown, when that happened downtown, not every person downtown was surveyed. It went to the downtown area. They weren't all surveyed and asked whether they wanted or not. Common sense prevailed. We said, we shouldn't have a tiny pool next to the church. These lots are too small. This is a natural offshoot of that. And I don't, so to say that the planning board was, they're charged with, sort of looking at what the proper thing to do is for for all of us, for the common good, not just for an individual homeowner. And I think, so anyway, I just, we can agree to disagree, but I think that this is it'll be a great conversation. I would love to see us make a comment on it, and of anyone, I love to beat up the planning board, but on this one, they're right. Andrew and I go at it plenty, but on this one, they're doing the right thing. And, I would love to be able to support them because they're doing the right thing here.
I appreciate that they worked on the square footage. I think that at the discussion of the planning board, again, trying to find something that worked for everyone. I do think in this context where the planning board and FinCom are at odds, I think if we make a comment, we have to be ready to really stand behind it. And I think, unfortunately, very regrettably, we haven't, as a board, had enough of a conversation about pools. All of the things Matt is bringing up are the things that I think are more important than some of the, it's too noisy concerns. And I think that it may be a zoning issue, but it probably is a conversation within resiliency, and then how zoning plays into that. So I think, Matt, you're bringing up all very important points and reasons to support the article, but I think that I don't think our board has had the discussion to be able to really back up a singular comment.
And unfortunately, we're here now, and this is our opportunity. So
to have the discussion on pools?
Well, or to have on any of these important topics. This is our chance to have our say, and so.
Yeah, I don't know how we would do that in comments unless we were united. But, I mean, again, if everyone felt the same as you did on some of those other issues, like proximity to wetlands, impervious surfaces, those kind of things, I would be supportive of that, but I don't know that we're going to have that discussion this evening.
My quick take on it, I support the article. I think it's, if it's unanimous in planning board, they worked on it, they adapted it. And I don't think it's just trying to get rid of pools via zoning, although there's an aspect to that. But I don't think we need a comment. On something controversial like this, I would like to see us kind of really united in a comment, even though I agree with pretty much everything Matt said.
Yeah. I do think it is an important conversation. I do very much regret that we haven't had it before now. Maybe we can have it in the next 4 meetings.
We've had it from time to time, but it's always just one-offs.
Yeah. And I think that it was an error to not follow up from the article last year that was so contentious to have that conversation before now. There were a couple comments that I overheard from the audience when we were there that although it wasn't discussed on town floor. There were people in the audience that had hoped that we would have some form of discussion. So this will bring up the discussion again, but hopefully we don't put it off as this board, because I do think it is important. And I don't think the Board of Health regulations are going to do enough to take care of the negative impact that they're having.
Well, I still think we have to have an honest discussion about what bothers us about them, rather than doing these picking away through zoning. I just don't think it's appropriate. And I don't think it's appropriate to say that I have a vested interest, because this is not going to impact my business.
Well, anyway.
I mean, that's kind of far-fetched.
Yeah.
And that's not why I'm against it. I'm against it because I don't think it's appropriate to take away people's property rights without asking them.
Yeah, the town meeting is asking them. That's the venue where that happens. The venue where we take property rights away or bestow them is a 2/3 vote at town meeting. So that's our
So
that's our
the
government.
town meeting will decide.
I understand.
I think we're at no comment for this one. Article 49?
No, I'm multitasking, but were there any other zoning that jumped out at anybody? Till we get to 62?
I'm trying to find it, 58. I just wrote down. Oh, this was the height restriction.
What article?
Article 58. Not necessarily to add an additional comment, but I just really wanted to say that I liked the planning board comment about why we have flexible housing or flexible zoning in this zone for affordable housing and workforce housing. And I think it's something that we have to keep remembering, that we don't want to change things that we just implemented to reduce affordable housing opportunities or workforce housing.
And I've talked to John, I haven't done it yet. I may prepare an amendment to that if this is looking like it's going to pass, to allow it if it's for affordable housing in some manner. But that's I'd rather it just stay as it is. But if it looks like it's going a certain direction, I think sort of guarantee that we get some affordable housing. I just haven't had a chance to do it.
I think it's a good strategy.
Mm-hmm.
59. I wanted to understand why. What was that was residential event facility. Let me see, where is that page?
It's right next to 58.
Yeah, but I'm getting there. I'm like 52.
Page 74.
Okay. Yeah. It was the planning board motion was to take no action, and FinCom was to do it. Was to support it. And this was an attempt by Mr. Cohen to term some of these properties that are using as commercial, to actually limit them or call them commercial in some respect. I'm putting the short version on it. And I would just like to know, what was the conversation that led to no action on it, or just a quick.
So this particular article, again, a citizen-sponsored article, and it's similar to an article that was submitted last year. The public testimony was very much against this particular article, mainly, I think, because of the limitation about the numbers of the... they pointed to the fact that we have the tent bylaw. The tent bylaw allows 3 events, and I think that convinced, this was a majority vote on behalf of the planning board. You should know that we are, the Plus Department has implemented enforcement against properties. We have a case currently pending right now where if a property is being used essentially as a rental hall, they are in violation of the zoning bylaw. So it's one thing to have a residential home that occasionally has a wedding or occasionally has a big party. But if the property is being advertised and marketed as your wedding venue with everything all set up, that essentially is a rental hall. And again, there's a case that's proceeding right now. So the bylaw is very clear about what commercial use is and what residential use, and the term accessory use is important in this case. So I think some of the members felt too that we do have the means to enforce this. We'll see how this particular case comes out because it is being appealed. We will be relying on town council to help our building commissioner at the hearing.
And Andrew, is it what's the fines? What's the enforcement, or what can we do for the rental hall?
So what's happening right now is that the owner of a property that has been, in our opinion, violating the bylaw and basically operating properties excessively has been given a cease and desist order. So, and told they can't do it in the event that there's more than 3 events being held, or there's like continuous events, that basically there will be action to shut it down. So, or a $300 a day fine.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Right, I'm not suggesting we have a comment on it. I think what's happening is what Andrew, it's more than just that one event hall. Some of the biggest complaints I have from some of the neighbors on the cliff and a couple other wealthy areas is that what used to be some summer neighborhoods with a couple rentals here and there are now full-on 6-week, 7-week hotels, and with multiple families and large parties, 5 of the 7 days a week in those areas. It's a huge change, and I'm not saying we comment, but I think it's something to be thinking about because it is impacting sort of quality of life in those neighborhoods. And if you look, you say, how bad can it get? You read some articles from down on Long Island and some of the issues they've had, it can get really bad. So
there may be another type of bylaw, just not this particular one, that is generated, by planning board or staff.
Right.
But this particular one was probably not going to work.
Yeah, and on Long Island, they've got DJs and pool parties and, all this stuff happening on these expensive properties, and it's become a real problem, so.
I'm actually glad you pulled this one. This is one of the ones I had a comment for just as we had wrapped up, is for a future select board meeting, talking about the business license and how does this kind of play into it if we're having rental homes turn into a business model. So I just wanted to add that comment too. I also had 60. I don't know if anybody else pulled out 60. But the planning board didn't support the Tom Nevers affordable housing solution. And my comment, just reading through the motion, was that one of the reasons they didn't support it was because the 2007 Tom Nevers area plan, and I feel like priorities have changed, and wondering if it's something we should be supporting or at least examining.
I noted this one because of the comment, I think, from town council not town council, but I think it said that we can't look at it because it was, it's basically a repetitive petition. I think it was last year. So I don't know that we can even discuss it.
Okay.
But that's why I noted it, because I wasn't quite sure how that worked, what a repetitive petition was, and if that means that it's just not even going to be brought up.
I also think we have to be careful. If we have town and country, it's for a reason. We should be careful about increasing density that's car dependent and everything else in the country. We should be targeting it toward the town areas. There's a lot of town areas that could be a lot more dense than they are. And I think that's, and that's sort of that's a comment the planning board made, and it's a proper one. I think it's, and we have to be careful under the guise of affordable housing to do things that, impact everyone's quality of life even more. We do this and we get 2,000 more homes with 4,000 more cars, and we'll be saying, what did we do to ourselves? So.
I like this article. Talking to planning board members, they kind of explained to me this, it needs more work. It's close. It's a great idea. For me to have a 3 or 4 acre lot in Tom Nevers, add on 2 covenant homes, you wouldn't even notice they were there. As long as it was covenant or some kind of affordable, it was very restricted, and I think that's a good thing. A 4 acre lot, that's giant.
Yeah, but and the bad part about it is where it is. That's the, every house that we build represents 2.3 vehicles somewhere on the island at the peak. We had 32,000 vehicles peak summer, August last year. Can we have 42,000? I mean, this is, if we're going to do some of the things that we're talking about doing, we have to be very careful of town and country and set a line and say the country is the country. And I think this type of thing chips away at it. And if we're not careful, it'll chip away at it in areas that are ecologically sensitive. And, so it needs more work for sure.
Yeah, on a 1 acre lot or a half acre lot, maybe on a 4 acre lot, if everything else is fine. I mean, what you're saying is in opposition to all of our housing goals. So you got to pick.
No, it isn't. So anyway, we don't have to go over this.
I mean, I would say that there's only a handful of properties that would even qualify for this.
Right.
And you're still limited by septic and well. So you're just kind of like splitting off another piece of your ground cover and your septic capacity, restricting it to permanently affordable. And once that bike path goes in, it will be safe to walk to the bus stop. And honestly, already tons of people in Tom Nevers ride the bus. I see a lot of bikes up there all summer.
Well, there are
I think that it's something that I would just say we should continue to work on it. I don't know if we need to comment on it.
I don't think we need to comment.
I think
and they're already allowed to do
positive.
that. They can already carve out part of that and make it a covenant lot.
Yeah, but when you have a 3 acre parcel, like being able to do 2 and creating more inventory for the covenant program.
Well, when this initially came, it was to be everywhere, and then it got shrunk down to a smaller area. I think, the conversation really we have to have is, the covenant law is, are we trying to get double, and so anyway, we could go on, but.
I do think initially I do appreciate again that sort of outside of the box thinking coming from citizens for solving some of the affordable housing, but I do think this really for me straddles that balance of concern for some of the ecological impacts like septic, all of that. And even though I think we can say we wouldn't even notice it, I think that it's a sort of a cumulative effect eventually. On the other hand, I do think it could potentially in some form be part of the affordable housing, part of one of our approaches to affordable housing, but I do think it just needs to be vetted out more. So I'm on the fence on this one. So no
I
comment.
thought we wanted to spread things out more.
Yeah. I'm okay with not commenting. I think it's something we should be exploring and thinking about how we add more tools to our toolbox.
Well, and I think the spreading out who's again, that's something that the Affordable Housing Trust can kind of look at is this board deciding what is spread out and where it's spread out? I think that's where, again, the Affordable Housing Trust should probably play a role in figuring out if this is the best approach. Is this spreading things out the way that makes sense?
People need to dust off their comprehensive plans and read about town and country and why we do that, and it goes completely against the idea of spreading everybody out. So, new urbanism and what we love about downtown is what we really need to be copying, not building more suburban sprawl.
Well, that's why we should keep the 40 feet in CMI.
Yeah, well, we all agreed on that.
Um, 61, I just thought that the FinCom and who was it? The FinCom and Planning Board comments. Planning Board comment just saying that it should be directed to other committees and commissions involved with coastal issues. I personally support that. I think it should be a directive. I think that, again, this is another one that we might not be ready for now, but I do think it should be considered within coastal resiliency specifically. So I don't know if that's worthy of a comment or it's just, I do support the Planning Board comment though.
I'm fine either way. I think, you know, I think it's, one of my points, and I said this at MPDC, one of the points here is we might not be thinking about this wide enough. Rick was thinking about it merely from a coastal perspective, and storm surge is gonna, you know, run up Easton Street right into Long Pond, you know, right into Lily Pond, and there's other areas, you know, that a lot of these wetlands are gonna need places to grow as they go, and especially the places that have been tidal and infill. So I think we need to, you know, look at it a little more, you know, holistically. So.
No comment?
I don't think we need to comment.
Yeah, no comment.
Okay, so 63?
Or 62?
Oh.
We had a comment on that.
MPDC.
Yeah, I would love to adopt the MPDC comment.
What was the?
I'll read it for the camera. Historic preservation is a planning concern. Our continued economic viability and popularity relies on our authentic preserved built environment. However, we recommend this article not be adopted. The changes proposed in this article would require a home rule petition to implement and are at variance with current HDC practices. The HDC already has authority to approve or deny demolitions as they determine to be appropriate. And I think partly the reason for the comment is the last sentence. I mean, I think over time, what happens is some of the boards get worn down and forget that the purview that they have and the power that they have. And I think reminding everybody of that, I think, is important.
I think the Finance Committee does that in their comment. Their last sentence says, the committee recognizes the HDC as the authority to approve or deny demolitions as it determines to be appropriate. I think our comment would just be repetitive.
All right, leave it.
Okay, 63. That is a citizen article. FinCom has a motion not to adopt with a comment.
I know town council says it's not legally enforceable, but I wish there was a way to figure out how we could do this. It's just my comment.
NPDC wrote, the availability of affordable housing is a planning concern. However, the approach suggested in the article is illegal and impractical. So, I mean, I think we can leave it as it is.
Okay, 64, again, citizen article to not to adopt with a comment. Sorry, no action.
No comment from you.
Nope. They don't need to.
65, citizen article to not to adopt, and I think it's already been understood we can't really do this anyway. 68 is a citizen article. There is a positive FinCom motion on that.
You skipped 66 and
66, the big ones.
Oh, what did, I'm sorry. I meant
Wishful thinking. Libby wants to go home tonight.
What did I? Okay.
65 to 68.
Okay, whatever. After 8:30, things start getting not good. So 66.
Yes.
Yes,
You're
what?
asking 66?
No, I'm
I
just,
thought you were asking if that's the one we're on.
no, that is the one we're on.
Yeah, we are.
I do actually realize that.
Do we want to?
Do you want to make a comment?
Do we want to make the comment of that it's not legal? From kind of similar to what the comment wrote earlier. Town council's advised this article is not legally enforceable.
The original article, as Chris Glowacki proposed it, had some legal defects, I guess I'd suggest, looking at John Giorgio. That's why we decided that at best it would be requested to seek, which does not compel you to seek or be instructed to seek. So that was the compromise wording we came up with, and I believe that Chris also worked with Sarah to make sure it was still within the scope of the original article that he put forward, just to clarify.
I think the public's going to think that it's still the same thing. They're not going to really know the difference.
Well, and when we don't do it, this is, this goes to our strategic goals. It goes to, it goes to incentives for NRTA. It goes to, it goes to the heart of what we need to do. If we're not going to limit vehicles, then we need to find other ways. Parking and dealing with this is sort of a, something we've kind of kicked the can down the road for years. And I think it would be a huge mistake to have to go to town meeting votes for some of these issues. We will never get there. And what would happen if we don't, we've been advised is we'll start closing streets. We'll end up with a single street that we can drive in and out of town on. I think we're trying to look at this from a bunch of different angles. That this takes ammunition. It takes ammunition out of our, it takes the ability tools out of our toolbox is what this does. And I think it's a bad precedent to set, because I think it's very difficult to town meeting is very passionate and they usually make the right decision, but it's very difficult to do something this complicated on the floor of town meeting. And enough people that, have a vested interest and park for free will show up and walk out and we'll never have that opportunity. So I would like to see us, I don't know, we could say request means we don't have to listen to you, but, that's kind of a flippant answer too. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I just think this is really important. And I think if it passes as the FinCom has motioned it, I think we are making a huge mistake financially, quality of life, opportunity of future select boards. I think as motioned, we would be making a huge mistake. And I'll say that on town meeting floor and hopefully be a little more better prepared, but.
And what would a comment be?
I don't even know. I'm not sure. And we're late and, and these comments came to us late and here we are, so.
I think it's just a little problematic. I understand what the FinCom was trying to do, just requested. I wish it would have. Not everybody's going to understand that from the public, and so if it passes, they're going to think that this is what happened at town meeting. Why is it coming to town meeting? And then we have to come back and say, well, it was actually just requested, and it looks like we're put in a very weird position. This is what town meeting wanted. I don't know if a comment's going to help that or explain that or not.
But, just a question for the board. If this is overwhelmingly supported at town meeting, that just might be a pretty strong message to us on how the community actually feels about this, and maybe we need to rethink it.
Everybody wants everybody else to pay. Everybody
I
wants
know.
everybody else to
I
drive,
know
drive
they
their
do.
car or to not drive their car, right? It's just.
I agree. It can be very self-serving, and sometimes it's easier to implement the goals and see how they actually work in practice rather than people being afraid of them. But at the same time, if 700 people support this article, that's a pretty strong message. So, I don't know if we need to comment. I think maybe we just see what happens.
I was going to say, I think that's the thing
We'll
is that
talk on
is,
it.
with any of these articles, that's the possibility, and I think we have the opportunity to rethink it. And I don't think we aren't limited by this article. I think there could be some misconceptions, but I don't know that we can explain that forevermore in a comment anyways. So I would maybe it's something at town meeting is said, but I don't know that we have a comment that is going to really explain what we're thinking.
Yeah, I could only think if we're going to do a comment, to comment about how it's part of our strategic plan to not be so car-centric, and maybe putting something along that this gives us a tool, funding-wise, to have affordable buses and things like that.
I'd be supportive of something saying that it is an effort to reduce car usage. I think that really is, because that's something that's been questioned quite a few times. And this is just another an opportunity to explain what we are trying to do, because it has been lost a couple times. So I would be supportive of something like that.
So I like what you said about the car usage. Maybe you can also, or we could add, and incentivize for increased usage of alternative transportation.
Mhm.
That's what I see this.
We could take some pieces out of the strategic goal.
Almost that
Some
vision
language.
statement at the front where we say, Nantucket, what is it? Not a car-centric, no streetlights.
So you want to comment?
Yeah. A comment tied into the strategic goal.
Okay. I can come up with something and review it with you, Don.
Okay.
67 is a citizen article prohibiting roundabouts near schools. FinCom is a motion not to adopt. 68, citizen article, complaint committee. FinCom motion not to adopt. 69, citizen article, limiting heavy commercial vehicle deliveries in the core district. This got a lot of discussion, maybe more than almost anything else. FinCom is in take no action with a comment.
Yeah, I thought their comment was good. The committee supports the article sponsors commitment to gathering the data. So rather than telling us we have to get it, they're saying they support it being gathered, and I think that's a good thing. Things have shifted in the last 15 years, and we need to get some data and make it a little better.
No comment? No. 70 is a board article to change the name of the Board of Selectmen to the Select Board throughout the town code. That has a positive motion, no comment, probably not needed. It's pretty obvious. Article 71 is a bylaw amendment relating to a minor change to the municipal aggregation operational adder revolving account. That has a positive motion from FinCom, no comment. 72 is the town's bylaw amendment to the single-use plastic bylaw. It has a positive motion from FinCom without a comment. 73 is the citizen bylaw amendment for single-use plastics, and the citizen is agreeable with the FinCom motion on 72, so he wasn't really pursuing 73 anyway, and FinCom has to take no action. 74 is a citizen article relating to permitting for obstructions on beaches. FinCom has a not to adopt motion with no comment. And I think the proponents came in and were supportive of that. They were not. Okay. I thought I heard them say they were okay with it at one point, but.
No, they came in and asked us to reopen it, or to rescind our ruling and take another consideration of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should comment on this. I think we should not let that motion stand. The comment I was thinking, we agree with the intent of the article. The Select Board agree with the intent of the article and have directed staff to ensure continued historical beach access and ownership. It's crucial to economy and quality of island life, something along those lines.
Is that similar to what the other citizen article, Clifford's article, is asking?
No.
Yeah, different. Because it's asking for a different legal opinion.
Yeah, this one is, let me get to it.
So if we put a comment in, for instance, in FinCom, so we're not going against FinCom's motion, but we're saying we'd like to direct staff to do X, Y, Z.
Well, and we already have, so it's kind of, I think we want to tell people that this is important and that we're working on it. You know, that's sort of the intent of what I would like to say, that this is important and we're working on it.
I'm okay with a comment like that, especially because we have started that already and we are doing that.
Unless you just want to make a statement at town meeting, so it's not confusing since the motion's not to adopt.
Man, we could either way. I mean, I attend, well, go.
That's okay. Thanks, Matt. We had extensive discussion on this twice, and our observation was everything is already in place that takes care of this, and therefore this was not needed as an additional article. So.
Thank you.
And I attended one of the two. I didn't realize, I missed the second one. And I think I watched some of it on TV, and I think some of the information that it was based upon was not correct and somewhat misleading. And so we have to work that out. So that's the part of the problem, is that some of the stuff is complex and has been, has been chipped away at. And I think we need to really focus on it. But I think, anyway.
Could we just talk about this at town meeting?
Yeah. I'm okay either way. But I think it's worth a comment either if it's not in here, then at town meeting.
If we're going to do a comment, would it be agreeing, we agree with the Finance Committee's motion? We agree with the Finance Committee's motion and what you said, this is already being done or enacted, or
yeah, we're working on it. We could say that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that comment.
Yep, that clarifies.
As long as it's clear that we support the FinCom's
right.
motion.
That was my thing. I didn't want to be confusing.
Mm-hmm. I'm supportive of that.
Okay.
So you are.
75 is a citizen article regarding right-of-way for bikes. It has a positive FinCom motion. No comment. '76 is another citizen article about a bicycle passing buffer zone. It has a positive FinCom motion. No comment. 77 is a citizen article regarding merchandise and wares, specifically the distribution of free samples. This has a positive FinCom motion, no comment. 78 is a citizen article regarding outdoor lighting. That did have a bit of discussion, and that is a not to adopt, no comment.
Libby, if this became a priority for select board, like, how would we go about it? The bylaw is probably not the best way. We would just, in future fiscal years, we would find funding for it and try to do, maybe not exactly like this, but.
I would want to go about exactly what.
What are we trying to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we can figure it out.
What's that?
Then we could figure out, like, I don't know what specifically you would want to do.
Right, yeah.
79 is the leaf blower citizen article. FinCom is a not to adopt with a comment.
I just want to make a comment that I think more importantly, it has to do, in my mind, about the environmental impact. And we do know the carbon emissions. And so I think it's unfortunate this has really been more based on the noise, the nuisance level. I think that we're going to see a change towards electric anyways. I think we should be ahead of it. And I think something along the lines of a sustainability officer and some sort of, net zero plan or something that comes out of some of the sustainability initiatives we have in our strategic plan. A gas-powered leaf blower ban is I think a no-brainer when it comes to that. And again, we can measure the carbon emissions and know that they're pretty serious. So again, the way this is worded and presented, I understand, but I just as a note, really generally, I think this could come back.
I attended when the public spoke on this, people in the field, and there was some vehement opposition and very strong reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to add, so it was quite helpful before I talked to Rita about it at length, and I think there's a general consensus among FinCom that this is where the industry is going to go. Mm-hmm. Our concerns were about implementing it this year because we felt that you're unduly burdening small employers here or small what are those called? Landscapers, thank you. That you're unduly burdening them with a capital expense in, frankly, a very short time, and that they had only spoken to 25 of the landscapers, and of those, 17 were supportive, but 8 were not. So with that numbers, when there's over 100 landscapers on the island, we just felt that there hadn't been enough groundwork yet done to demonstrate that this was appropriate at this time. So, and the other part of it that we added, or at least I added personally with my discussion with Julia, was to say, had this started like the straws, and as kind of a grassroots movement, it had an opportunity then to potentially be taken up and done in a more proactive way. So I don't know if that helps, but.
Yeah, and Denise and I did talk a bit. I think having if this was a year and a half, like we did with the single-use plastics, because there is an expense for small business owners, restaurants, coffee shops. Businesses will be burdened. I think they can be ahead of the curve on this one since it may not pass. But again, I just think that this will be coming back to them. And as someone in the industry, I think people should be paying attention. But I think, again, it will be the environmental issues that'll be more important.
Yeah, this isn't really, it's kind of new, but it's new now, but it's not that new. Wade Green was in Sconset trying to get people to do this 15, 20 years ago. And the whole idea was, people will do it willingly. We'll just ask. We're all neighbors. This will be great. That doesn't work. And so, so anyway, I hope it comes, I hope it comes back. I think it's really important. I think the pollution itself, I think the people handling these machines and breathing this in all day, I think it's, I'm with you, Rita, we should be ahead of the game on this. Mm-hmm. If this had a date of a year or two from now, maybe people could phase it in, and maybe that will happen at town meeting, but.
Just from when I heard the testimony, it was a lot more than the expense of buying the equipment. It was, where are we going to charge them? It was, they're not powerful enough to move wood chips. It was just, they were like, everything's wet all the time on Nantucket. So there were arguments about not all the technology is quite there yet. There were just some other concerns. I mean, I don't know that's a reason for it not to happen, but I think that a lot more outreach needs to be done and solutions to these problems from people who really know how they're using them in the industry.
And my only rebuttal to that is I've had a landscape maintenance business for 12 years, and I've never had a leaf blower at all, brooms. And so I think, where does it get charged? It's just like anything else. You don't need a gas-powered leaf blower. And much like all other things electric, the technology is a lot better. Wood chips might be an issue. Again, maybe there's a way to work around that. But I just think the technology is there, and there are some larger companies that have made the switch, not just because they're large, but because, again, I think they're seeing the writing on the wall. So we didn't really talk to restaurants about a lot of this compostable packaging and some of the prior regulations and bylaws. We didn't necessarily go out and poll all the restaurants and say, would you be willing to get rid of all of your single-use plastic and convert to compostables? We just did it. So for me, it's a little bit weak to say the industry doesn't like it. They don't like it.
I'm just letting you know what their position was, because I don't know if everybody saw the discussion.
I think some of the angst about it is, to be honest, is the group that brought it. I think that some of this is going to disappear. The same things could have been said about, reciprocal saws and a bunch of other items that are now all electric. And these guys use them, and they charge them on site. They charge them in their vans. They charge them back at work. They bring a pack with a couple batteries if they need it. For the most part, I don't even think they need it. The battery technology is so much better. So, I hope that we get there, and I hope we get there sooner, for the environmental aspect and for the quality of life for our visitors. I mean, we've got people, I bet you 6 hours a day, you can hear a leaf blower on Cliff Road now, every day. There's one in the background all day long. And so, and so that's, that is not positive for the island. So, Anyway,
I don't disagree with all of your arguments. Was just letting you know what the other side was.
no, I understand.
That there are some issues.
Okay, I say no board comment. I just wanted to comment.
Okay, 80 is a citizen article relating to capital projects coming before town meeting. That is a not to adopt from FinCom, no comment. 81 is a citizen article, I think you know about this one, regarding restrictions proposed in the Washington Street parking lot. FinCom has a positive motion.
We were talking earlier today about the 7 parking space limitation on town vehicles.
That was my comment.
Was there an answer about how many
yes.
vehicles we have?
4, Brian, but other town agencies park there, and from time to time, the departments that are in town, specifically health and sometimes not in town, but out of town, plus use those spaces. So they are used by municipal vehicles, whether they're all used 7 at one time or whether there's sometimes more. I'm not really sure.
There's 2 spots that actually for the assessor's vehicles, and then there's 5 additional spots to the right of that, and they're used throughout the day by any number of departments that either come down to our office or come down and go downtown, or they're parked at night after.
But so 7 is enough.
7, yeah. That's how many is currently there, and that seems to be enough.
I've served with Finn Murphy back in the day, and he would, he pushed to have those cars moved out on weekends so those spaces were available when people aren't working, so the spaces are available for parking downtown. That sort of thinking has sort of evaporated a little bit, but I think, we and I'm not saying I'm not saying we change that, but we need to go back to a little bit more of that.
Back to town council's review, it's legally defective, so do we need to comment at all? Because even if it passes, it doesn't mean we're not bound by it.
Yeah, but this is another one that is completely in opposition to what probably, where we probably have to go if we don't want to face, sort of ultimate gridlock. So
there's been so far there's been no talk of ever doing that.
No, there isn't, but I get worried about, again, putting all this on the, just taking things away from here. I don't always agree with what's happened with our board or other boards, but, then get rid of us. But I think legislating through town meeting like this is not a very, not a very efficient way to do things. And if that's the case, it will lead to a ton more stuff like this.
Well, it's already we're heading that way the last
I know, and it's partly because, it has. And so how do we, and I don't have the answer, and unfortunately we, didn't do this a week ago and how, and really dig into it, because I think we have to quell this. I think it's bad government where we're heading. So.
Can you make that point in a comment?
Yeah, please.
So I just wanted to address Jason's comment. This, unlike the Gowacki article, this is a bylaw amendment. And so if it does pass, it would be binding.
It would be.
Unless we don't know what the Attorney General will do with it, but as I indicated in my opinion letter about paid parking, but these kinds of regulations can be adopted by the Board of Selectmen. Or they can be adopted as a bylaw. When I reviewed this particular article, however, it was my opinion that it was not in proper legal form because it would require town meeting to approve something that the Board of Selectmen has the authority under the statute. So I think it's inconsistent with state law. That's the comment I made.
So the question is, do we put that as a comment, which is opposite of FinCom's motion? Or do we just have John Giorgio say that on town meeting floor and not put a comment in?
What would the comment be that's inconsistent with state law?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we should, but
Yeah,
I worry anyway.
I'm good with that comment. I don't know that it's really going to quell sort of legislating through town meeting, but I think that we can put it in.
Well, just to be clear, town meeting is our legislative body. We're the executives,
yeah.
right? So we do legislate through town meeting, but with regulations, it gets, you don't, like you said earlier, you don't want that on town meeting floor, doing small regulations like this.
You don't, and you need the flexibility. If, for example, if there's no paid parking, and then what happens if we find out the same 40 cars just parked there, constantly, and we have to tweak it? We can't tweak it until the next town meeting, and then we might not get the votes again. I think it's sort of, I'm sort of trying to, it leads to sort of, we're allowed, right? What if someone came and said, you can't extend the parking district without a vote at town meeting? We wouldn't be able to correct the issues that were happening up at the oldest house unless town meeting let us. If we couldn't expand the parking district, we couldn't expand it into some of the areas that are, off Liberty Street that are putting their own ugly no parking signs. So that is we take the heat on all that parking stuff, and we have to deal with it and sort it out the best we can on a monthly, yearly basis. We should be doing it more, but we do it as best we can. I worry about these types of articles that take that and make it a year away, a year and a half away. It just really, it's not smart.
I have a question for the Finance Committee as to why they supported it.
So when Mr. Jacosta came in and presented this to us, he believed and he felt very strongly that so many employees who work downtown who could not afford to pay for parking count on being able to park at that parking lot. And so you would be impacting the least economically, what's the word? You'd be impacting a demographic that is least able to afford to pay for parking. So therefore, that's why he wanted to keep that parking lot. And we had a lot of discussion on it, and in the end, that was a very persuasive argument. So that's why we landed on that.
Okay.
Thanks, Christy.
If we had paid parking, there could be vouchers for people who worked out. I mean, there's so many other things we could do. To me, this was something that was outside of FinCom purview. It's not a financial thing. It's a quality of life issue. I think it should have been take no action, which is my opinion. I don't think it's going to hurt or help either way having a comment, unless we all feel really strongly.
I think we should. I don't know what the comment is, but
I was here when they discussed this, at least the first, or maybe the first time or the second time. But one of my concerns was that I didn't feel that this fully different, and maybe it does. Does it fully differentiate out the boat parking or the liveaboard parking? Those are actually paid parking spaces. So I just didn't think that it was entirely clear, and I was said that wasn't an issue, that wasn't, or it wasn't the intent. But I don't know that it completely makes it clear on those.
I don't think it does at all.
Yeah, the people that are the toughest time affording it don't even own cars. So we're spending a lot of money, on vehicles, and a lot of people don't even, the most people that need it the most in the community don't even own vehicles. And a lot of the people get in there. If you look at the town meeting, if you look at that lot, people get in at 6 and 7 in the morning. Their car stays all day. They shuttle back and forth to their vehicles, so they don't have to give up that spot. They don't turn over very much in that lot until sort of late in the day, if at all. And so, in an ideal world, the most advantageous, you pay a little bit, and the more, further away you pay less, or you get it for free. I think what we have to, as a board, have to be careful about, I'll try to go quickly, because I know it's late, but when we increased enforcement, 15 years ago, everyone said, we don't want paid parking. We increased enforcement, and then there was an uproar because people were getting so many tickets. And if we increase the tickets to $50, it'll be even worse than uproar. Paid parking, if you do it properly, is less onerous, less burdensome. It's a better system, and I just think that we have to make that case, and at some point, and I worry that we won't even get a chance to make that case because of these things are happening. So,
a question for John: If this passed, does it impact the paid parking that we already have in the form of permits for liveaboards?
So, I'm sorry, Rita, does it impact paid parking?
Don made the point that we technically already have paid parking because we have permit parking there. So if something like this passed, does it affect what we already have in place?
No, I mean, if you have a regulation in place now, in my opinion, this would not supersede a current regulation, but it would restrict the ability of the board to enact further regulations regarding paid parking in the Washington Street lot.
Okay.
And I think that, if this does pass, it's going to go to the Attorney General, and the question will be, does the board want to, submit a comment to the Attorney General or just let it go? I don't know what the Attorney General would do with this, but I think you can certainly make an argument, a good argument, that it's inconsistent with state law.
Okay.
and we could at that point make that argument.
Yes,
but that,
if
but
the board,
yeah.
If the board so authorized, right?
But that's a little bit sneaky, just letting it go through and then it passes, and then we write, we undermine it. I think if we're going to do it, we should be upfront and say, this is bad for these reasons.
Yeah.
This is a poor decision for these reasons.
So I think maybe we add the comment that it might not be withheld with the state.
So I think you could say, if you were inclined to do a comment, that the board doesn't support this, or the board has been advised by town council that this bylaw may be inconsistent with state law, which allows the select board to enact regulations regarding paid parking.
Should we say something like there is no current plan to institute paid parking aside from what already exists there in the form of permit parking?
However, I think
but we
don't want
to combine the future.
Yeah. And then adding on John's comment.
Yeah.
I don't really know what John's comment was, but maybe he and I can.
It's not, well.
I can work your comment in later. I don't really know what it was.
We can work on it tomorrow morning.
Okay. We've got.
It just stops us from making it. We might want to make the back row in January, February for commercial vehicles because something changes, right?
Right.
And
We want to be able to do the permit parking.
So something along the lines of the board doesn't support the motion because it limits flexibility for parking
future permitting
programs, and the permitting
something like
is an issue.
we don't have an intention of instituting paid parking in the majority of the lot, but we want the ability to change the existing permitted parking as needed. Because there's commercial permitted parking in the dead of winter, right? Are we still doing that there? There's definitely the pier parking, and there's definitely the liveaboard parking that are all by paid permits.
And
we've been advised by town
one more time.
And we've been advised by town council that that such a bylaw may be inconsistent with state law, which authorizes the select board to enact parking regulations.
Got it. Okay, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, and 88 are all sewer district articles. You've already basically acted on these as sewer commissioners some number of weeks ago. The FinCom has supported all of your actions, and I've got a note you'll see there. This was been sent around a couple times now. That basically where the sewer commissioners did not vote to expand the sewer districts, that's going to require a 2/3 vote at town meeting. Secondly, in every case, we want to make the point that prior to any sewer extension actually being undertaken, there are some restrictions. So the question was, do you want this to be a note or a comment? And I think in my mind, I came to the conclusion that it's fine to be a note because it's just factual. It's not really a subjective comment. So if you're okay with that, we'll just leave it as a note. And I think the note also mostly reflects prior notes or comments on this type of article by the board. 89 is a board-sponsored article which would accept the general law allowing for sewer user charge deferrals for certain eligible citizens. That's been positive motion by FinCom. No comment. Article 90 is another Mass General Law acceptance relating to property reval service contracts as they relate to the length of the contract. That's a positive FinCom motion and also article submitted by the board. Article 91 was submitted by the board on behalf of Plus or Planning. This is the acceptance of a general law relating to part-time building inspectors, and this is something that towns enact from time to time due to personnel issues, I guess I would say. That is a positive motion from FinCom, no comment. 92, 93. There's a series of home rule petitions here. 92 is a resubmittal of the water company water companies merger. That's got a positive motion from FinCom as it has.
Are they ready to merge this time?
Well, it's been a legislative issue,
right.
but they are ready to merge, yes. Article 93 is a home rule petition which was going to convey some property on Orange Street in connection with the Milestone Rotary project between the town and the land bank. However, land bank has since indicated they don't think this is quite ready yet, so FinCom did a move to take no action, and I don't think the board was objecting to that. 93 is a home rule petition that was presented to you months ago from the airport that allows them to get approval for certain types of capital projects without a town meeting vote. And I think you all know about that. That's been positive motion by FinCom. 95 is a similar situation as 93. It's a home rule petition with Town and Land Bank that would authorize some land conveyance for drainage purposes on Candle House Lane. That's not quite ready as well, so that's a take no action. 96 is coming from the Government Study Committee. It's amending the town charter relative to the Audit Committee. You've heard about this. There's a positive motion from FinCom. I don't think there are any concerns.
I just had one quick thing. Just to stick with the gender neutral, it says Chairman of the Select Board and Finance Committee. Could that be changed to Chair? And it's in section B.
Let me ask John about that. I guess so at this point. Could it?
An amendment. It would have to be an amendment.
An additional amendment?
Mm-hmm.
95.
It's in under B, who the members are. It says the chairman of the select board.
Yeah, so that would be a motion to amend, to change the word chairman to chair in the second line of subparagraph B.
Could we just change it now, or no?
No, that's in the warrant.
No, this is the motion.
This is the motion.
Change the motion?
Oh, okay, can you just scroll up for me
FinCom have
to
to
the
do
I don't
warrant
think FinCom
itself?
will mind.
So if you go up to the warrant itself, it said,
Oh, yeah.
so, where is it?
Okay, that's because.
Oh, yeah, it's published in the warrant as chairman.
I know, but that's just the article. Is it outside of the scope to change it in the motion?
Oh, I see what you're saying. You could change it in the motion. I'm sure Sarah would say that's within the scope.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
Nice catch, Christy.
I'm feeling much more politically correct right now
Presumably
than I
you would-
was a couple minutes ago.
Would you want to change
For select board and finance committee.
Right.
Yeah.
change both?
Okay, 97 is a citizen home rule petition prohibiting glyphosate. That is a move to take no action by FinCom with a comment.
And a good comment.
Yeah. 98 is a town article, a long-term lease authorization for solar facilities. We've gone over this, and that is a positive FinCom motion. We're getting into real estate articles now. 99 is a town-sponsored article for the acquisition of 24 Surfside Road. That did have some discussion by FinCom, but it is a positive motion, and you all know about it. I don't know if you need to do any comment on the real estate articles. Article 100 is a conveyance of industrial land and an acquisition of land elsewhere in connection with a sewer pump station project. That is a positive motion from FinCom. Again, it's a town-sponsored article. 101 and 102 are companion articles. One is an acquisition, one is a conveyance for 114 Orange Street, and I believe that has to do with the drainage project. Both positive FinCom motions. Article 103 and 104 are both related. They're articles for different pieces of property, but they are for the same purpose, drainage, acquisition of property for drainage purposes. Both have positive motions from FinCom. 105 and 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, and 113 are all citizen real estate articles, and most of them have positive FinCom motions, with the exception of 113, which I believe was viewed as incomplete.
And my points I wanted to make on 106, 108, 110 are all yard, people have expectations. These are yard sale. So the questions that we talked about last time, how we're beginning the process where they're gonna have expectations. I haven't looked, I think most of these are okay. I haven't looked at them that closely. And then the question on 111 I had was resiliency question. That's North Carolina Ave. That's out in Nantucket again, right? Yeah, so I just would like to hope, I'd hope that before we have, the FinCom has approved it and everybody's approved it, I hope we've taken resiliency and some of those issues into account. Otherwise, it becomes a runaway train and we get here and can't change it.
I think we heard you loud and clear last meeting where you all want to take a revisit of the yard sale program and add in criteria for those types of things.
Right.
So none of this is going to happen. If it's approved by town meeting, obviously we know it's an authorization, but nothing will happen until your yard sale program is tweaked to your satisfaction. 114 is a citizen article. This has to do with a bicycle accident database that has a take no action by FinCom. Article 115 is a town article relating to the insurance reimbursement account and the repayment of debt in connection with the sewer force main failure in January of 2018. 16 and 17 are annual articles. 116 for the stabilization fund, that is to appropriate $500,000 from free cash into the stabilization fund, and another 500 into the capital project stabilization fund, two different funds approved by FinCom. 117 is appropriation of free cash, and that is a take no action, which it often is because we've had not needed to reappropriate any more of it or appropriate any more of it.
I just want to say thank you to Libby and all the town people who did so much work with us at FinCom, and were always available to get the information that we needed. It's, it's been a pleasure to work through this with everybody from the town, and they all made a great contribution. And if I sit here and name them, I'll forget one, just like at the Oscars. So I'm not going to name everybody, but everyone who came, we really very much appreciated their help and insight in helping us get to these decisions. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Denise.
Okay. Brooke Moore, my moderator for FinCom, is having a public session, a public forum on March 12th from 5:30 to 8:30 in here to talk about any of the articles that any of the public want to come and talk to us about. And Brooke has kindly offered to moderate for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
March 12th, it's a Thursday. I hope you're going to be in the front seat as always.
Did I miss the other Act Now, the delivery trucks? Was that pulled?
No, it was in there, but
it's a not to
Did we just skim over it? We didn't even talk. Okay.
No, you did
we
talk.
touched on it for a minute. But
There was a support comment.
Yeah, Matt
that
liked the data
Yeah.
pulling.
Okay.
That they pushed the data
Quickly,
collection.
I don't know where I was on that. I was flipping through it, like, where is it? Is it pulled? No, it can't be. Okay, thanks.
okay, we good. That's a lot more comments than usual.
It's a lot more articles.
Well, in the future, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, I'd love this to be earlier, get everything in earlier. I say this every year. I'd like it in a couple weeks earlier. I'd like a single night where we can work on this. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of people who don't stick to deadlines, and it makes us. And I'm not, not blaming you, Libby. I'm just, we have so much work to do. It just makes it very difficult.
Yeah, I totally hear you. It's not so much people not sticking to deadlines, though. Last week was school vacation week, and you didn't meet, and people aren't always around to do things during school vacation week. FinCom, we can certainly look at the timeline next year, but it really compresses things to get things any earlier. It is a annual problem.
It is, and we were getting stuff up until 3 this afternoon. We were getting comments and things in. Anyway,
I was trying to forestall that a bit by BCCing the board on versions of the warrant as I was doing them about weekly. So hopefully people had a chance to at least get some idea of what the motions have been.
Yeah, and my point is not a criticism of you at all, Libby, and I don't mean it that way. I'm just there were multiple times tonight where I think the board wanted to spend more time on things and wanted to have dug deeper into it, and it's too late. So that's the only point. And is there a way to correct that? So.
Okay.
In the future, Matt, there might be a way for us to, I don't know, we take 10 articles a week or something. That's just a thought.
That's a good idea.
As FinCom makes their motions, maybe we add them to our agenda.
Yeah.
One of the other things I was going to bring up during select board comments was it'd be really helpful to see how FinCom votes, like if it's 5-4 or unanimous, just to understand like what were their key points and discussions. It doesn't need to be in the warrant, but just like a cheat sheet for select board. It was really tough to go back and watch all of the meetings and see how people voted.
I think if we go with a suggestion that we're looking at them as they make their motion, that would be probably easier to do. And I think I agree. It would be ideal, particularly when it's a split vote, to see what happened.
Yeah, that's why I tried to go to as many FinCom meetings as I could, just to stay on top of it, and more in a supportive role than.
This is all really good discussion, you guys, but we have another public hearing, and it's 9:30.
And I'm going to have to leave.
we can definitely continue to improve our process. Under public hearings, public hearing to consider amendments to Chapter 200, Town of Nantucket Traffic Rules and Regulations to allow for a paid parking program. I'll open the public hearing.
Good evening. Just continuing from where we had the discussion a few weeks ago, the suggested changes that we're requesting to the parking rules and regulations are necessary to implement parts or all of the parking management system that you authorized us to purchase last week at the select board meeting. The first one, change number 1, would make changes to section 200.6, which are parking prohibitions and restrictions in certain places. These assorted changes here would have the effect of authorizing the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board to establish a paid parking plan in the core district as set forth below. And the different provisions of this have to do with purchasing of equipment, procuring equipment, authorizing or requiring the deposit of coin or cash or credit cards or something to pay for that parking. One part of it that needs to be determined by you would be section 200.6.4.3, which is on the next page, or scroll up, Erica, if you could. The vehicles parking in the core district shall not be required to pay the parking fee for the first blank minutes of parking. Keep in mind that whatever you choose tonight, you could change it at a later time. So it's just, we're just filling in a blank tonight. The next sections, change number 2 is required to increase the fines for overtime parking violations in the core district. And this request has the effect of increasing the overtime parking fine from $25 per violation to $50 per violation. This change was allowed by a change in or special legislation in 2003, I believe it was, that allowed the town to implement fines up to $50, in which case many of them were increased back at that time, except for the overtime parking. Now, this requested change will only apply to overtime parking violations that occur in the core district. So, for instance, if somebody parks overtime at one of those spaces near the hospital on Vesper Lane, that would still be a $25 violation. If somebody parked overtime on Washington Street in front of the American Legion downtown, that'd still be a $25 violation because that's outside the core district.
But how about the 2-hour spot? Any of the 2 hours?
No change to
Those
that
are
at all.
25.
Yep. Those will still be $25.
Yeah. You want to talk about that? Or?
I think when we get,
okay.
It goes through it, yeah.
Okay. The change number 3, which is necessary to implement an e-permitting program. Basically, this just adds the terminology digital permits to where we have adhesive stickers, placards, things like that. And it allows the use of an e-permit without having an adhesive sticker or placard along with it. Now, one thing to consider about that is currently we get occasionally some complaints. Somebody will say, we ticketed this car and this car, but not this car, not that car, not that car. They don't know everything behind it. Well, that'll happen more with e-permitting because the person who's watching what we're doing out there won't know if that person has a permit or not because only the person with the handheld device will know that. So you just have to be aware that that kind of complaint could increase as a result of adopting digital permits without the adhesive stickers attached. Change number 4 is necessary to establish the ability to create neighborhood-based parking districts. What this change allows us to do is to, from time to time, establish parking districts that are, or to modify the parking districts or establish new ones, and it sets the conditions of which to do it. For instance, we want to be able to say we want to restrict them in the sense that we don't want a parking district to be one house long in front of a particular house or something. We want it to be at least of a certain size, and it has to be contiguous and those types of things.
So
Plus,
when you do 10,000 square feet, is that linear feet or
linear,
just
yep.
linear?
Yep.
So you've got to have 10,000 on the road.
On the road.
Okay. Well, then why is it square?
I don't know. That's the way the lawyer drafted it.
Help me, John. If
You have to ask about that.
Yeah, square feet is a lot.
10,000 linear feet would be pretty long.
That's what I'm
It'd be
saying.
pretty
It's
big.
10,000 square feet is a quarter acre. So, and if you're including the houses there and whatever,
Yeah, well, there could be houses because the district does incorporate the parcels that face the road.
Right.
So it could be 10,000 square feet.
Okay, then that's
Yeah,
probably okay.
that
If
makes
that's how we're
sense.
doing it, then that's
Yeah.
fine. I just want to make sure it's not, okay.
Yeah, that would make more sense actually, in the sense that downtown you don't have anything that's that big, so it'd be multiple properties getting together. That's the idea.
Right, okay.
So it's not just one.
Yeah, I get
And
you.
it also provides that instead of the current requirement that all the butters be sent individual certified mail, that we can just make notice via publication that a public hearing is going to be held on that, and then it's adopted, and then another notice is posted that it was adopted and who's required to, and they're required to get a permit. Change number 5 addresses changes to the guest house permits. Right now, there's a formula to allocate guest house permits to various guest houses in the residential parking district or in the core district. And that formula is somewhat challenging to calculate because it requires somebody to go up and look at the number of spaces that they have and try to make a determination as to what spaces are for guests and which spaces are for employees and which spaces are for the apartment that's caretaker that lives there, that kind of thing, and it just gets very complicated. We issue a permit, I believe it's $100 or something per permit to the establishment, and then they can give it to their guests to allow a vehicle to park there. That completely cuts the town out of the revenues. We're aware that most guest houses do give it as a courtesy to their guests. Some guest houses and some establishments actually charge for it to park there. This would just take all of that out, and then others in some cases, including one in which a year or so ago we actually had to revoke the permits because they were allowing employees to use the guest permits while guests weren't using them, and we caught it. And then yet another one had made Xerox copies of the permits and we're putting them in the windows. So it's just been a real challenge to manage. What we could do is eliminate that section entirely. We can just make guests of guest houses eligible for the temporary residential parking permits that could be obtained online by either the guest house owner or the guests themselves. They would just pay the town the standard fee of the $10 per night. Or if the guest house wanted to provide the service and charge $15 a night, they could do that as long as the town still got their $10 for that night. That's how that could be worked.
Chief, is that a ton of more work for you, doing all of these individual permits, or would you do them at the beginning of the year?
Well, no, these would be a lot better because these would just be as you go along, and most of them would be done online, and we wouldn't even be involved.
Okay.
Where right now, it's a lot more work because it requires actually going out and inspecting the property and then constantly looking for the permits.
Just on
They
that,
would just show the reservation as proof, show the reservation as proof.
They would
like
have
they do with a lease.
Yeah, they would have to show something, or there could be a code put in there that the guest house could issue that would do it. Somehow there'd be some proof. There's provisions in the e-permitting system to provide for all kinds of different methods to provide proof of whatever rule you'd set up.
Sorry, Matt.
yeah, no, that's all right. My concern on some of this is we have limited space, and if we're making it easier and easier to add more people for $10 a day into this limited space, it's just going to push even further. And so, I don't have the answer, but I get a little worried You know, so that we streamline, so, you know, and if we're gonna, and say we do have paid parking at some point, you know, as long as we can change the amounts and make it $20 instead of 10 and make it fair for people. But I get worried that, you know, that we don't have enough as it is now, and a lot of the complaints we get are neighbors who can't even park anywhere near their house. Cars pull in at 2 in the afternoon and aren't gone till 11 at night. And so I just want, how do we make sure we're not making that worse? Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're certainly able to set whatever rate you want for it. You know, we just suggested the $10 because that's the current rate for the temporary residential parking district. And this is no different. All we're doing is making guest house guests eligible. Honestly, I don't think it'll bring that many more cars than what we currently have in there.
You think they'll be the same ones more or
Yeah,
less?
they can only put so many people in a guest house, you know, so it's not like, and they're limited to the number of days. It's not like they can buy one for 30 days. If they did, they'd pay a lot of money for it, first of all. Secondly, they'd have to have, you know, that proof that they're actually there for 30 days. And we'd be able to tell that, you know, this guest house with 5 rooms has got 15 people staying in it, or, you know, 25 people, we'd be able to tell that. And that's it.
Do you guys have any questions, comments? This is a public hearing. If anyone from the public wishes to speak on this matter, they are welcome to. We've probably dwindled our audience, unfortunately.
Thomas Beretta, Tasha Mullane. Last time we had this meeting, or a couple meetings ago, there was discussion about getting the handheld units in order to crunch the data of the existing cars that were going to be on the streets to determine if there was turnover rates and enforce the parking. We were going to raise the fees to $50 to incentivize the people to actually get out of the core district. And now there's discussion of implementing this towards paid parking. And last time it was 4 hours to be able to park. So somebody could come in at come in at 8 in the morning, park for 4 hours, leave at lunch, come back at 1, park for 4 hours, and then leave at the end of the day and not actually have any turnover. So is there any discussion, or have you discussed anything about what time frame of these people are going to be able to park downtown? Because if it's 4 hours per turnover, then there's not going to be a single car that's going to come off Main Street, because every real estate agent, insurance company, and art dealer is going to park on Main Street and pay that $14 a day to leave their car there all day. Are we doing 4 hours?
These regulations don't address that issue, because all this simply does is provide the authorization for the board to do it. They still have to have discussions at some point, if they decide to actually do it, on how many hours you can park, what the rate is. All those things would be set aside for a future discussion to be had. Presumably, after we've had a year or so to gather the data to be able to make the decisions. It's just that this regulation change now gives us the ability to get the equipment that we need to do that. If that's what they choose to do, they may choose not to, is the whole point.
I thought the previous meetings we had for the warrant articles was to pay for the equipment. So I don't understand why we have to have regulation changes in order to just have the equipment to do the data crunching, when we're actually changing the regulation so that in a future board meeting, be it September of next year, they could literally create paid parking in an instant public hearing that nobody's here at, because A, it's been shifted to the end of the night. Everybody had to leave, so nobody's voicing it. And so what you're doing is creating the regulation so that it can be implemented at the end of a meeting without anybody input, when the first discussion was to spend that I think, was it 150,000 for equipment just to get the data crunching? But now it's morphed into actually creating the paid parking down the road.
Well,
so I mean, I'm just concerned that we're gonna push this too quick.
Through you, Madam Chair, I dispute the one part of what you're saying is they can't do anything. The board can't do anything without having a public hearing on it.
Correct. I understand
and
that.
And they have to advertise it for, I can't remember how many weeks now for that.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So
3 weeks.
3 weeks. So any effort to actually set rates, set hours, implement to actually start charging for parking would allow for have to be done only after a public hearing, just like right now.
No, I understand, Madam Chair. I respect that, and I understand that. But as you can tell, it's quarter to 10, and there's nobody here to speak it. So that's
not
the concern.
intentional for it to
I
come
understand.
up this late.
I understand it's not intentional, but we know how things happen out here, and all of a sudden we're doing this, and we're creating all this regulations so that down the road it can be done overnight because we've already laid the groundwork out. And that's the problem I see with this is we've laid all this legwork, and next thing you know, we're going to have it, and without anybody realizing it.
I mean, well, frankly, from my perspective, the most important thing that we need to do tonight, if we didn't want to do all of this, is to change the 25 to 50 so that we can do what we talked about with increasing enforcement. But I also really do like the idea of doing the $10 per day for the guest houses because I think that cleans up a lot of administrative work. But
agreed on that part.
I'm not tied to doing all of the changes, but I mean, I think it's wise to get it done, but
thank you.
I'm sure there will be other thoughts on that. Libby, did you want to say something?
No.
Yeah, I understand Tommy's concerns. I don't necessarily share all of it. I don't plan to do it at the end of a meeting and have that happen. When we make these changes, I think that my intent right now is to gather the information for the whole summer, make sure it's analyzed, and then figure out what the right fair thing to do is for the neighbors and for the downtown workers and for the visitors. You have to consider all the different people right now, all the different stakeholders, and without that information, it's hard really to do that and to do that fairly. And I think a lot of people think it's going to be a lot worse than it will be. I have a feeling we only have to change 15-20% of people, 15-20% of any one time have to do something slightly different at the very busy times. It's not a huge change. And so anyway, on the 50, I'm a little happier knowing it's 50 just in the main core. I'm really a little worried about $50 because if we do have license plate readers and we enforce more strictly this summer, I think we'll have backlash. I've experienced it before, and the hours got cut, and it all kind of went away for a number of years. And so I think we have to proceed carefully. We want to do the right thing and do the fair thing, and I think we have to proceed carefully. I'm okay with it in just the historic core, though. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I had issues too. The more I thought about it, I thought going to 25 to 50 everywhere downtown was be a little much. It's really gonna it could hurt the experience for visitors coming down and getting that. The incentive would be there for sure. You get a $50 ticket. It's definitely in the front of your mind where your car's at and how you're getting into town. But I do like that it's just in the core district. That does change it for me.
I think that's the incentive for the people who are driving into work to park a few blocks out rather than to take up a space on Main Street. And that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, the tough part with that works great in the winter because they can go a block or two and the space is open. It doesn't work at all in the summer. Then they're even further away and they can't. So, because there's no. So anyway.
You hope that in the summer when it's nice out, they'll do other alternative modes to get to work. But
is this including the 15-minute and the 30 then, getting $50 tickets?
It's the 15, 30, and 1 hour zones.
Yeah. So that's the other thing we have to think about is if someone stops in quick and, and it takes them a little longer at the pharmacy, do they get a $50 ticket? Like that. So there's that part of it as well.
I mean,
So.
unlikely that they're going to be there every 15 minutes, but
I know.
With the new technology, will you be able to see if cars are rolling? So if you ticket them on Main Street and then they move over to say Federal, would they get a second $50 ticket?
Under the current regulations, if they move more than 50 feet, they're eligible to park for another period of time for whatever the posted limit. If you wanted to take the 15 minutes out of it, you can just scratch on the schedule of fines, the 200.12.7 is one of the $50 tickets, because that's the section that applies to the 15 minutes.
Well, I move we scratch that.
take out the, for the
Take out the
15.
15s. And just give them a 25, not a 50, I don't know. And it would, and I think the other one, is that, I made a motion, is that supported?
Well, do we want to make motions before
Oh,
we
we'll do it
close
at
the
the end.
public hearing?
Okay, we'll do it at the end.
Okay, so can you just withdraw that for now?
I'm withdrawing.
Okay. Are there any other public comments tonight?
Yeah. I am so Phil Gallagher. I'm so uncomfortable about all this. I've only known about Nantucket since 1969 when my brother came here. And you came to Nantucket because it was colonial. It was simple. It was a pleasant place to come in the summer. And I would like you tonight, when you go home, think about how complicated this is. There may not be any other way than to make some great complicated structure. I feel so sorry for whoever had to think up all the words that you've seen on this thing today and go through all the justifications and the changes and still going through changes after all the work they put in. But if I'm coming for the summer and I've got to have a lawyer and a policeman in the back seat of the car just to figure out where the dickens I'm going to try to park, or if I can park at all. This is a big, this is not a simple colonial town, Nantucket, it's turning into a place that's just as busy as downtown New York City that you don't really want to come to.
Would it make any sense at all for us to continue this public hearing? It's 10 minutes of 10. I think there were a bunch of people here who might have wanted to talk that left. I mean, can we keep it open? And I know that everyone probably doesn't want to do this all over again, but
You could keep it open. Next week, you've got a lot going on. Was there somebody who wasn't going to be here on the 18th?
I might not be here next week.
Okay, because the 18th right now, we don't have a lot on the agenda.
But does it have to be advertised for 3 weeks?
No,
can
because it's a
extend it.
continued hearing, but it would give us an opportunity to advertise it again.
how does everybody feel? I mean, we're missing a board member. It's really late. And I know that there were audience members here who were probably here for this. 2 weeks?
Yeah, as long as it's not at the end of another monster-long meeting, depending how it's scheduled.
Honestly, I did not think this meeting was going to be nearly as long as it was. The warrant articles are a lot more extensive than they have been in years past.
So motion to...
Is that okay with you guys? Okay.
Continue.
And one quick...
To the 18th.
And one quick comment, and I'm not, I don't disagree with you, Phil. I think that it has changed quite a bit. We've added 20,000 more vehicles. Where do we put them? And the other thing is what we're planning on doing now is just enforcing the existing rules. We're not changing anything. The 2 hour is 2 hour, the 1 hour is 1 hour. We'll still have plenty of people parking and rolling. The difference is at the end of the summer, we'll be able to quantify who rolled, where'd they roll, how often did people roll, what was the usage. I mean, that's the stuff that we want to gather to then be able to put something together that's fair. And I'll plug for a parking commission, because I don't think it's something we can do as a board in front of the camera on a Wednesday night. I think this is going to take a lot more horsepower, and I don't think the staff, they've got enough other things to do. They need help, but that's, Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Committee reports, quickly.
Quickly, I'd just like to just kind of introduce and thank Mr. Sears, who is here. He's our Assistant Finance Director, and I'm very excited because he's one of the many things, I'm sure, one of the things he's working on is capital, and it's going to be being on the capital program committee for 3 years, having someone like Rick helping us get capital in line, working with the departments. I think that's going to go right in line with our master plan for facilities and our needs. So I'm really glad. I just wanted to welcome.
Welcome.
That's all I had.
I said one other quick one. Do you want to go?
You can go on.
I just know that we're coming up on our housing choice designation at the end of March. So I just want to make sure it's on a board agenda to make sure that we cover 7 out of the 14 to be in the state designated criteria.
Okay.
Which I'm happy to
do we have that
go
slated?
over a little bit more.
I'm waiting for Tucker to give me something, but I don't have a date yet.
Yeah. I also want to talk about it in general because there's 14 designations that we could get, and we're trying to get 7 just to qualify, but I think we need to go for all 14. So figuring out what needs to go to town meeting, what the select board can do, all of that. So just a general select board agenda item.
Right. Coastal resiliency met. There'll be a recommendation coming soon. We have a draft of sort of what level should we be thinking of for the next 50 or 100 years. It's pretty important, as we saw earlier with the building we were talking about tonight. That was being, designed on, sort of 4 years ago information. So it's going to be really important. That's number one. And the other one is I want to apologize to you, Don, for sort of attributing something to you that I shouldn't have attributed in the heat of the moment. And I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And I do that a lot with Sheila, so I've had plenty of practice.
Is that it?
I can.
Is that it for the
Would you
night?
like me to?
No, I'm just saying, can I have a motion to adjourn now?
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's too late.
Is that all? Okay.